afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Can you hear me, please? If you can hear me, let me just see your hand.
Yeah, good afternoon, madam. I think I can hear you.
Okay, sir. I can see Mr. Doguwa from the Ministry of Education. Okay, I can see you, Mr. Doguwa. Good afternoon. I welcome everybody here to this webinar today. My name is Orie Van. I'm the resource specialist and CEO for Educare Magazine, which is a platform that Natafam David Consulting runs on education. Just a little introduction to Educare Magazine is a monthly publication projecting education and education-related matters for students, youths, parents, educationists, and corporate bodies offering educational services and products. Yearly, we organize conferences and recognize outstanding educators and schools. During this COVID-19, we have created a platform for educators, for students and parents through webinars to discuss topical issues that concern education in this country and Africa as a whole. And today we are looking at a topic that says reimagining how to sustain student engagement and learning virtually. How do we sustain student engagement and how do we sustain them learning virtually? Since we have come to realize because of the incidence of COVID-19 that virtual learning is actually going to be the norm now. And then we have professionals on the panel that will discuss this issue, and questions at the end of the meeting will be answered. I just want to advise that if you have a question, just put it on the chat. We will respond to it in due course. And I'm having on this panel this afternoon, I'll start with the only man here on the panel, Mr. Odoguwa Ayotunde Olatokunbo. Mr. Odoguwa, you're welcome. Thank you so much for sparing your Salah break to be here. I know that we're all in a celebration mood, but we have to do the needful though. Actually, we didn't know that today was going to be a public holiday. We would have shifted it, but we just considered that, well, we can just hold it. Mr. Odoguwa, you're welcome. Mr. Odoguwa is going to take course on knowledge gap and closure. A little introduction on who Mr. Odoguwa is. Mr. Odoguwa is a director in the Ministry of Education, Lagos State. He is in charge of, he's the director and head of department for policy, planning, research, and statistics in the Ministry of Education. Mr. Odoguwa holds a BSc in chemistry education, 1990. He obtained his MBA in 2000 from the University of Lagos. And like I have said, he is presently the director and head of department for policy, planning, research, and statistics in Lagos State Ministry of Education. Mr. Odoguwa has delivered several papers on leadership and education management at the local and national levels. Mr. Odoguwa, you're welcome. I can see Dr. Mrs. Julia Obaji. Dr. Mrs. Julia Obaji, you're welcome to this webinar, pulling you all the way from the north. You're welcome. We appreciate that. A little introduction or a profile of Dr. Mrs. Obaji. Dr. Mrs. Obaji is a historian by profession. She obtained her BA and MA degrees in history from the University of Jos in 1989 and 1994 respectively. In 2019, she obtained her PhD from the Nigerian Defense Academy, Kaduna. She's a senior lecturer in the Department of History and War Studies, NDA, in ADA. She has been teaching, researching for nearly 3 decades. That's 13 years. That's a long way. That's a long way, Dr. Mrs. Obaji. History is not my best course. I appreciate you for that, for 30 years. Her research interests include issues in contemporary Nigeria, economic history, military history. Of course, she's in NDA, so she must have to look at military history and gender studies. She has publications to her credit. You're welcome, Dr. Mrs. Julia Ogbaji. I'm yet to see Mrs. Ronke Posh Adeni. She's yet to come in. And then I also have Mrs. Tony Sam Emehelo. She's going to be a little bit late. And when they come in, I'm going to do an introduction on them. Like I said, we are looking at reimagining how to sustain student education, student engagement and learning virtually. Looking at how COVID-19 and virtual learning have changed the educational landscape, it is obvious that educators have to reassess on how to sustain student engagement. Educators have to also rethink the growing knowledge gap that is increasingly by the day, and how to implement mindful teaching practices that can support students that will need to study independently, or students that are struggling to study virtually, which is not the norm. We know that in Nigeria, because of resources, a lot of schools don't actually do virtual learning, but this has come to stay. How do we handle this? How do we close this gap that we know that definitely this COVID-19 has created? And I'm calling in the first person to speak, who is Dr. Julia Ogbaji. Dr. Julia Ogbaji is going to take us on quality teaching and learning. She's going to look at various areas of quality teaching and learning. So I welcome Dr. Mrs. Julia Ogbaji. You're welcome, please, sir.
What is very crucial in learning is the curriculum. And I'm looking at the area of articulating a written curriculum. What is a curriculum anyway? Curriculum is also an approved plan of study, which has been an approved plan of study for delivering in a classroom. And it is usually comprehensive since it combines the rationale, the goals to be realized, as well as the objective for the kinds of learning that will be given to students. It is also an authentic, what is the purpose of a written curriculum? It is normally a product of visionary educators that have produced lasting effect on students. As a practical plan, a curriculum is a compromise between ideals that are spelled out by experts and real-life situations as demonstrated by teachers, students, and their parents. It is also important that the instructors clearly understand and reach the demands of can interpret demands stipulated by governments, because all our educational institutions are regulated by government. Most importantly, the professional development of teachers must align with written curriculum, because it is in so doing that they will be able to pass their knowledge to their students. So this it now involves a curriculum development, and this is a step by improvement in the courses offered by any educational institution. The world is changing rapidly. Long time ago, we never knew that we will even have cell phones and all that, not to talk of today, people are learning virtually. So education, curriculum must also change with the times. Innovative teaching techniques or strategies are constantly being devised so as to improve student learning experience. The onus is therefore on individual educational institutions to have a plan in place for acknowledging these shifts and incorporating them in their curriculum. We have models for curriculum development. There are two that are frequently used, the product model and the process model. The product model is result-oriented. You know, grades are the prime objective, with focus lying more on finished product than on learning process. When you hear he finished with a first class, he came out with distinction and all that. But sometimes those students that come out with top grades are not necessarily the best, or they just pass the exam, but it's not a guarantee that they have actually learned something. Then we also have the process model in curriculum development, and this is more open-ended because it focuses on how learning develops over time. Schools should be doing curriculum development. The next stage is the curriculum planning. This involves implementation of different types of instructional strategies and organizational methods that are focused on achieving optimal student learning outcomes. Instructors might structure their curriculum around the daily lesson plans or a specific assignment or a chunk of course work, certain units with a class or an entire program. In planning the curriculum, certain factors that hinder or complement their teaching, educators are therefore responsible for ensuring that their curriculum meets students' educational needs and that materials used are current and comprehensive. Instructors' choice of effective teaching, and these are to demonstrate knowledge content. So when you see a person who graduates with a first class, does the content of the course he read, does he know it very well? Or he just read to pass exams? And then the curriculum for effective teaching, instructors should demonstrate the knowledge of students, to demonstrate knowledge of resources, all the books and the resources that were used, the experiments in the lab, and then to design coherent instruction and assess student learning. We have curriculum design. So educators have a curriculum design, that is, identify what will be taught, by whom, when, as well as the objective of each course. They should also bear in mind that the curriculum contains the knowledge and skills which students need in order to master, in order to progress to the next level of learning. Knowledge is actually a step-by-step process. You know, you discover that when you treated the digestive system in primary 1, you go to primary 2, you do the same thing, except that this time is on a higher level. And that is how knowledge is built up over time. The students should clearly imbibe that. The curriculum design ensures that instructors cover all the necessary requirements and find suitable approaches and teaching methods to help them achieve their goals. There are 3 types of curriculum designs. One is the subject-centered curriculum design, and this revolves around the subject matter or discipline rather than the students. And this can lead to problems with students' engagement and motivation, and may cause students who are not fast enough to be left behind. Because, we are teaching biology today, and we are going to look at the reproductive system. They just run it through. Whether the students follow or not, they don't really matter. That kind of curriculum is not very useful for us. Then there's the learner-centered curriculum design. This one revolves around the students' needs, interests, and goals. It recognizes that students are different and should not be subjected to a standardized curriculum. Some students are so smart, others are so slow. Their level of assimilation is not the same. So curriculum, when we are drawing up curriculum, we should take note of that. This approach also empowers students to shape their education through choices. They select their own assignments, teaching, and learning experiences. It has been shown to engage and motivate students. It is, however, very stressful for instructors as a source material specific to each student's learning needs. This is challenging due to time constraints, balancing individual interests, and profile solutions. Students are exposed to the real-life situations. The problem-centered curriculum design encourages students to look at problems and profile solutions to them. This, like in this COVID-19 now, when watching TV, I've seen students that have developed maybe handmade fans, battery fans that are run by battery just by being at home. They are learning and also providing solutions to problems that we may encounter. And this design tends to increase the relevance of the curriculum by encouraging creativity, innovation, and collaboration in class. However, individual learning styles are relegated to the background. We have taken time to articulate curriculum because it is the pivot around which all learning outcomes revolve. It takes us to the next session, which is reviewing academic program to ensure quality outcomes. From time to time, institutions review their programs and the effectiveness and the progress of academic programs and help identify future directions and the needs and priorities of those programs. Are they still relevant? Do they serve the institute? The review includes selecting a review team of experts where they prepare a self-study document and then conduct a site visit by the review team, preparing a response to the review team recommendations. It is very, very necessary so that you remain relevant. Sometimes you have to take some courses off that and you no longer seem useful. And the purpose of this academic program review is to guide the development of academic on a continuous basis. It's a continuous thing. It's not that you do it and then 10 years, and some of your courses may become obsolete and you are still there subjecting people to them. It is anticipated that most common unit for review will be a single academic department or a single interdisciplinary program. As such, it is connected to strategic planning, resource allocation, and other decision making at the program review process. External academic teams discuss departmental plans for the future, including departmental goals and plans to achieve these goals and to ensure objectivity. What are the goals for academic review of programs? It is to the articulation of agreed upon action plans for further development of the academic program. External academic review teams are invited to consider these issues, focus on improvements that can be made using resources that are currently available for the program. Do you have enough manpower? Do you have enough equipment to carry out, to make sure? I've heard of cases where the NUC accreditation teams, for example, will refuse to give accreditation to institutions because they lack the manpower, the resources to run the programs they are mounting. Then, all that, if you have a good curriculum, and then you have you review your programs, academic programs from time to time. If you don't have good teachers, quality teachers, you will not get anywhere. A good teacher can make a world of difference in students' life, impacting everything from their classroom learning to long-time success. So if one is considering a career in education, it is important to explore the qualities of a good teacher. Good teachers are the single most important, more than facilities, school resources, and even school leadership. So what makes a good teacher? Good teachers are skilled communicators, important in effective teaching. They are good listeners too. This is there to build the skills and confidence level of students. They focus on collaboration. That is what they work along with other teachers. Of course, if you are a teacher, you find yourself constantly engaging in group activity, because corroborating means the willingness to hear from colleagues who maybe have more experience, are bringing different perspectives to bear in a constantly changing environment. Because once your curriculum changes, you won't say, oh, they changed the curriculum, I'm not going to teach again. No, we learn, we try to see how we can fix up the new curriculum and move ahead. Good teachers are always engaging, being able to engage students with humor, creative lessons. How come some students like some sexy teachers and others, they cannot stand them? Once the teacher is in class, they are just praying for the minutes to go by so that the teacher, and others, they want the teacher to stay. Is the skill which the teacher brings to the class, carrying everybody along. Good teachers show empathy. That is another key to engaging students and improving their learning, because you have to treat each student as an individual, not just imparting education on them. Even what is happening in their personal lives, you have to be interested. Some students have problems at home with relationships and all that. The teacher is not just to teach and give marks and go home. No, because we are mentors. Teachers are mentors. Sometimes lifelong relationships are established. So teachers must show empathy. Good teachers value real-world learning, because they bring their students into the real world. When you are teaching, when you go out there, a vice chancellor once said to his son on convocation day, he said, son, you have come to the end of your classes. Today, your studies begin. That study is now the real life situation. What he has been taught in school should be able to bring him to face any challenges he will meet in the outside world, outside the classroom. So good teachers share best practices, because once you have something that works for you and you find another colleague who is having issues in that area, I had this problem, but this is how I solved it, and then they share knowledge. Part of being an effective teacher is sharing your findings and best practices with others in the field. It's very important. Good teachers are lifelong learners, because they are dedicated. It's not everybody that can be a teacher. Those who join the profession maybe because they had no job, they don't last, but pay peanuts. But you find that they wake up every day and show up. That is because they are not just there for earning the salary, but they are impacting on lives that could be, it's life changing, and it could last forever. That's why you see teachers are very, very important people. And then for you to have quality teaching, you must train and retrain your teachers. You can't just keep your teachers for 5 years, no conference, no workshop, no. The teacher will begin to go down, and he or she will not give the best to the students. So it is important for learning, for training. One of the key skills needed to be a good teacher is dedication to continued education and a love for learning. There are some teachers, even when the organization does not send them, when the schools does not send them on further studies, on their own, they provide for themselves and go to school. That is a good teacher. He wants to better his own life and also better the life of his students. Then it now takes us to classroom management. Everything happens in the classroom. When you are in class, it's like a mini lab. You find all sorts of characters there. students that are noisemakers, the quiet ones that will not even say anything, the ones that it's like they don't care whether they. I remember I was teaching once, and this student was just staring. I said, "What is the problem?" He said, "What I'm saying is just like Tales by Moonlight." I said, "Oh my God, you know, it is very, very important. Classroom management. Once the teacher can get control, have control of his classroom, he has the students. So classroom management aims at establishing self-control through a process of promoting positive student achievement and behavior. Academic achievement, teacher efficacy, teacher and student behavior. These are directly linked to classroom management. Teaching is not controlling. Oh, I'm the teacher. Don't make noise. Sit down there. No, 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 no. But rather you work with students. Make sure you are carrying them along so that they can learn, they can grow, and together you succeed. You need to see the pride on the faces of teachers the day their students are graduating. You know, it shows that yes, they are pleased with the work they have done. Then by having strong student-teacher relationships with students, the classroom will work together. Academic success depends on these close relationships and guidance that teachers and students have with one another. You can see that if a teacher does not get well with the students, not only are they wasting each other's time, but the students will not learn anything. But the moment they try to, you take your students like your children. You give them the best, understand where they are coming from, feel their pains and all that. Classroom management has two distinct purposes. It not only seeks to establish and sustain an orderly environment so that students can engage in meaningful academic learning, it also aims to enhance students' social and moral growth. Students that have been taught well by quality teachers, their behavior quite exemplary. Classroom management is a multifaceted activity and extends beyond the traditional behavior management techniques recommended to deal with students with disruptive behavior. No matter how good a teacher you are, some students will just try your patience, but then you learn. That is part of the learning process. Teachers will develop caring, supportive relationships with and among students, organize and implement instruction in ways that optimize students' access to learning, promote the development of students' social skills and self-regulation, and use interventions to assist students who have behavioral problems. When you see a child behaving sometimes, it could be a cry. Oh, I need help. You reach out as a teacher who is experienced and try to find out what the problem is. The role of the teacher is not just to grade the student and to control students, but to help every student reach the highest possible level of achievement. Therefore, the long-term goal of any classroom management program is self-management. Once a teacher is able to manage the class well, the students will also learn to manage themselves well, and then they will have tranquility, which will allow for the flow of knowledge. So, in conclusion, curriculum is very, very important, and it is professional development of the teachers as well. Classroom management, teachers must make sure that they are not just there to grade marks. You are nurturing people. You know what you do, teach them today, what you hand over to them could go a long way in seeing them through life. I'm still praying to God. There's one of my primary school teachers I would love to see before, you know, because he was not, I mean, if he could read our faces, if you came to school then, maybe you had not eaten or you were beaten before, he would so comfort you, and before you know it, you forget your problems. So these are just what I have today for this session. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mrs. Obaji. We are sorry the volume was fluctuating. I think it's from her end. The internet was also fluctuating, so we couldn't hear her very, very well. But I just employ everyone. If you need yes, you need the copy of this. You just on that chat board, just put your email address. You get a copy of this, so you wouldn't have missed so much, because the volume was actually not encouraging. But thank you so much, Dr. Mrs. Obaji. From what she just said, I was just listening with keen interest. She said, first and foremost, that the world is changing. And because the world is changing, education must also follow suit. And the way we prepare curriculum also must be changing and conform with the world-changing education system. That is one important thing we should go home with, especially the educationists here. Please, we must have a curriculum that is a consistent correlation with the changing curriculum of the whole world system in education, because these children tomorrow may find themselves in the US or in the UK studying, and they find out that is one whole different kind of thing they are faced with, and they find it difficult. So educators should ensure that they meet the students' standard needs. They meet the students' standard needs. That is what she's saying. While we prepare a curriculum and the materials we use, we must make sure that they meet the needs of the students. We should also ensure that the curriculum meets our needs. Very important, from what she said. So there's need to review this curriculum. There's need to review curriculum yearly or quarterly or whenever it's supposed to be reviewed. And we have the Ministry of Education representative here. I'm sure Mr. Odogwu is going to throw more light on this. Are these curricula always reviewed? Are we doing that? Is the Ministry of Education doing that? Are they monitoring that? Is there a team that monitor this review of curricula? Because in Nigeria, I know we have curricula. We have the British, some people are using Nigeria, combining with British, combining with French, and so on and so forth. So it is important that these things are reviewed yearly to guide the development of academic programs on a continuous basis. Thank you so much. That is just a little, I want to pick out now for the next person to come, because she spoke so much, even in the quality of the teachers we should have. If you develop a good curriculum, an excellent curriculum, and you don't have good teachers to teach, to handle it, it becomes a problem. And that is a mess of the curriculum you have prepared. So while we prepare curriculum, we must also make sure that we prepare teachers, sending them for trainings, developing them. And teachers also in the house, please, you need to develop yourself. I have met a lot of school owners, they say, I cannot develop these teachers because tomorrow they move to another school. So you take it upon yourself to develop yourself. You should be a lifelong learner. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We'll come back to you in due course. I want to welcome Mrs. Tony Sam Emehelo. Mrs. Tony Sam Emehelo, I'm sure you're in the house. Are you in the house? Can we see your hand up? Mrs.
Good morning.
Okay,
yes.
Good afternoon. It's afternoon.
Oh, it's afternoon already. Don't mind me. It's been a long day for me. I've been working since about 4 a.m. So I actually lost track of time. So sorry.
No problems. No, we are just on time for your time, for you to pick up your time. And I just want to do a little introduction of Mrs. Tony Sam Emehelo. She's doing so much in the education sector. There's this thing she says, that the most deeply etched lessons in life. This is I'm just quoting her now. I'm quoting Mrs. Tony Sam Emehelo, the most deeply etched lessons in life are the ones self-taught or developed or discovered through experience. And then it buttressed what Dr. Mrs. Obaj teaches you must develop yourself. This assertion is an apt description of the amazing learning journey that Tony Sam Emehelo has experienced. She has arguably carved a niche for herself as a connoisseur to see for anything in the realm of educational leadership. In her infectious, high-octane and energy-packed sessions and presentations have left educators charged for personal leadership and excellence around the globe. Tony's obvious passion and ease with which she spreads the gospel of leadership as panacea for lapses in learning is drawn from more than 2 decades of experience in the education space. She lives what she preaches. She doesn't preach and doesn't live it. She lives what she preaches. She's a driven organizer and go-getter. She's more likely to see action points and timelines in a learning experience than anything else. So if she heads a school, the teachers must be in trouble. In her book, Personal Leadership Educator, she tells a life driven by a personal desire to be better and constantly evolving positively. Her foray into the field of leadership is one that has been duly learned, self-taught, experienced, and constantly reviewed. Tony's signature mentorship series has spawned several voices in the education space. Mentees who have gone on to wield influence of their own as teacher trainers while being constantly mentored herself passes her as one who practices what she preaches, being a continuous learner. Her leadership and learning journey is a refreshingly real experience that she shares at the many symposia, workshops, and conferences she has spoken. A vibrant speaker and energetic trainer, she runs leadership training programs both online and on-site. She also an erudite scholar with a master's degree in educational psychology, foundational diploma in Montessori education from birth to 6 years, and several certificates from degree awarding bodies in and out of the country. She's currently a regional coordinator with the Chartered Institute of Mentoring and Catering Coaching, Nigeria, Lagos. She is also a fellow of the Institute of Management Consultants, Nigeria. In 2018, she joined the teaching faculty at Inspirational Teachers Online School in the United Kingdom as video content creator and advisory facilitator. In her book, The School Leaders Toolkit, she shared timeless code for established and new school leaders based on her experience of leading 2 schools in 8 years. She's the lead consultant at Core Skills Developmental Services and the convener of the Facebook group Educational Leadership Academy, where she shares insights about education and leadership. Toye Mehelo, if I continue, that means we just end up this program with your CV and your profile and all that. You're welcome, and
thank you.
You're going to take us on the topic that says student engagement. Student engagement. Mrs. Dr. Obaji has gone through the curriculum, and she also has taken us with the teachers. Now, how do we engage these students? How do teachers engage students in their classroom, in their various classrooms? And if I may ask a question, if I may start a question from you, I give a prompt from you. I say, how has engagement changed during COVID-19? How has engagement changed?
So good afternoon, everybody, once again. Thank you for having me, Arabian. Thanks so much for the invitation. All protocols duly observed. Mr. Odugua, Mrs. Julia, and every other person that is going to be coming on. It's a pleasure connecting with all other educators. I think we have about 35 educators in the room. And so I want to first of all say good afternoon to everyone and thanks for having me on board. So before I go straight to your question, one thing I want to first of all say that I have 5 major processes in which teachers can use to engage their students, whether virtually or physically. So I just want to quickly share the 5 tips before I go ahead to answer your first question. The first thing is to model. when you want to engage your students, you have to model it first. Modeling is very key because John C. Maxwell says that leadership by example is not one of the forms of leadership. It is the only form of leadership. In other words, people do more of what we do than what we say. So as educators, we have to first of all model engagement. How are we listening to our students? Either physically or virtually, how are we connecting when they need our attention? Second tip I would like to share is mentoring. And mentoring is basically you going ahead and letting others leverage on your expertise, on your exposure, on the way you do things. All right. The third thing I want to talk about is monitor. You have to also be ready to monitor your students' engagement. How are they faring? What are the feedbacks? Are you actually giving opportunity for them to give you hands-on feedback on how you are doing? And how much of feedback are you also giving the students, whether diagnostic, formative, or summative feedback? All these are very essential, all right? You also need to motivate. You would agree with me that the virtual classroom or having to teach online requires a lot of motivation, okay? I mean, one of the reasons why I'm looking this good is because I want to motivate my audience. I want you to say, oh, who is this beautiful, charming young lady? And that is what you also want to get involved. And apart from motivating them through your looks, you must be able to engage them through a variety of presentation, video, audio, animation, text, graphics. A mixture of all the various types of presentation is also very critical. The last but not the least is you must be willing and be ready to multiply your engagements. And how do you do this? You can leverage on polls, sometimes having to take the back seat and let them take charge of coordinating and then, of course, putting the classroom together. Of course, that's going to be something that you have to think through, a lot of processes, and you have to also take due permission from constituted authority. You don't go ahead to multiply your influence on engagement virtually until you have actually done what is expected of you from your leadership and, you know, having to receive the permission to do so. All right. So that's what I'm going to be starting with. So to the first question Vivian asked me, how has engagement changed during COVID-19? We all know that the COVID-19 pandemic came as a shock and a surprise to every one of us, and everyone had to step up their game. Okay, it is I don't have to keep repeating that. We all know it was something we all experienced. And so the truth is the classroom has been flipped. It's more of technology than the physical connection because of social distancing and protection of everyone involved. Secondly, we know that the rapid adjustment has actually reduced engagement. And because quite a number of educators were not prepared to actually plunge in, although we are stepping up our game right now, but at the initial time, even school leaders were confused, not to talk about teachers. So, yes, I knew the amount of work I had to do, especially for the schools I consult, to settle them down. You know, I actually fell ill. I took ill a month, that was in June, because the workload was crazy. School owners, school leaders did not know how to go about it. They didn't know how to communicate. They didn't know which learning management system they have to use. Having to get the content put together was another different ball game. So we know that so many things were really, really affected, and engagement was really reduced at the beginning of the pandemic. However, we are making the necessary adjustments and we are getting better at engaging our learners. Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Sam Emehelo, that is so. What have you experienced relating to student engagement in? Okay, you have said what you experienced during this pandemic with the schools you consult, actually, and it's not actually directly you, but did you get feedback from the schools on their own experiences in engaging students? And what were these feedbacks? What solutions did you proffer to them, which other people can adopt to?
Okay, so basically, I think I was able to get about 2 or 3 feedbacks. And the first one being the fact that most educators had to, first of all, learn how to use basic technological tools. That was the first feedback, because without the use of the tools, engagement is not realistic. It can't even take place in the first place. So I got a lot of feedback. People having to, we had to put in a lot of crash courses, and I became an educational technocrat, even though I was more of a leadership expert. But
Yeah.
one beautiful thing about being a leader is that you can switch roles and you can step into any shoes when the needs arises, because leaders are problem solvers, and that was the first feedback we got. So we were able to get a couple of teachers to be able to use the devices. Secondly was to also create tailor-made platforms for different schools, because different schools had different needs. They had different customers, they had different stratas. And so we had to make them realize that you don't have to just copy and paste and take on whatever any other school is doing and running with it. So we also had to ensure that these teachers get learners interested and also inspired to learn. Okay, and this was done through them creating videos of their faces outside just voiceover slides, because the children would, even as adults, we like to connect. How much more children? So these are some of the things we had to really step out to ensure, as they were like emergencies. We had these emergencies right before us, and we were able to plunge in to ensure that the necessary adjustments were made at the appropriate time.
Okay, that was good. From what Toyi had said so far, I just want to pick one or two things to encourage our educators here. We must always be ready to make rapid adjustments. I just like that phrase. We must always be ready to make rapid adjustment, because nobody envisaged COVID-19. Nobody knew on the 28th of February that by March that schools will be locked down, everybody will be locked down. So we must always have this we must have this notion that we must be ready for shock absorbing of situations on ground. So we must have a mechanism for rapid adjustment. And also we need to also adapt to our own model. Don't begin to copy what others are doing. What is it that you're doing? You may only just have to make some improvements on what you're doing. And then what she has also said about student engagement is that engage these students. There are students that cannot learn outside the classroom. So what do? You come up with videos. You come up with different diagram graphics that will attract their attention. Especially you remember that they are studying from home, not in your presence, for example, for now. Then it should be somebody that will be able to mentor these students, be able to multiply and all that she has said. And because she's not sharing her slides, I'm just trying to put these things she has said so that we remember what she has said. If you're taking little notes on that, we should be able to multiply our engagements for talking about teachers. And school owners should also be able to train teachers. They should be able to train teachers. They should be able to spend their resources on teachers' development. So now, Toyi, I'm going to ask another question. What expectations are really realistic for students' engagement? What expectations are realistic? When we talk about student engagement, what expectations are realistic? What do we expect?
Okay, yes. This was how we went about having realistic expectations. First of all, we had to encourage the teachers first, because before we even talk about students' expectations, what do we as school leaders, what's our level of expectations about teachers? Don't mind me, I keep going back to the leadership, because for me, yes, the children are they are the core of everything that we do. However, the teachers are the vehicles in which we achieve the things we need to do as a school community. So we started with the expectations from the teachers. We made it gradual. We made them know that they can do it. We had to encourage them, because one of the things we needed to take into consideration is the personal, social, and emotional condition of everyone at the initial phase. I mean, everyone was actually going through a lot of panic attack, anxiety, confusion, and what have you. So we had to start with first encouraging the teachers. And remember, almost 80 to 90% of them had to step into an unknown terrain all of a sudden. And so we had to have realistic expectations. We did more of encouragement. We had to let them know they can do it. And for every little milestone, we had to form a kind of reward system, not basically monetary now, but I don't want to go into the details of all that. So then we also had to let them know that we have modeled the kind of expectation they should also have from their children. Aside from that, we also had to take a critical look at our expectations from the parents. And that started with the form of communications we were able to pass across, communicating from the point of empathy and having to know that it's no longer maybe school takes 70% of the responsibility and parents take 30%. It was flipped. As a matter of fact, parents had to take over 70% of having to provide data, having to provide the device, having to also provide support, which a lot of parents had to scream. I'm like, oh my goodness. I think I am ending up teaching the kids rather than the school having to do that. So there was a lot that we had to put in place to ensure that these things were adequately communicated. And then to the children, we also had to take it easy on them. Number one was we had to reduce the number of subjects that were being offered online. We had to concentrate, like Mrs. Dr. Julia, said earlier, we had to concentrate on the curriculum, the depth of the curriculum, and not just the number of subjects, because you and I know that virtual classroom can be very tiring. I'm sure after this session, you just feel like, you're done for the day. Like some of us that we're getting used to it. I have another class for 3 to 5 to be precise. So we also had to ensure that we assess. There were forms of assessment as well, and in our assessment as well, we had to also make our expectation measurable, significant, and also not too voluminous. All right, and those were the things that we were able to put into place, and especially we had to look deeply into age appropriateness, because we know the children attention span vary with age as well. And of course, engagement also have a lot to do with age. I don't want to go into all the factors that affect students' engagement now, but then these were some of the few things that we were able to do to be able to ensure that at least something was being deposited into the lives of the children. And also talking from the parents' perspective, because I have 2 children. I have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, yes. So talking from the perspective of the parents, I had to also take a lot of extra, I had to go the extra mile to not just leave them to what is being shared from their school. I leveraged on YouTube for kids. I was also able to leverage on getting other relevant textbooks to augment and supplement for areas in which which I felt that they still needed to get some form of information and learning in the course of the online classes which they had, to bring about supplementation and complementary knowledge to share with them as well. So basically that was it. I think we've lost her. That was it basically to answer that question. Okay, let me just continue because yeah, okay, good, you're back.
Yeah, continue. No, you didn't lose me. Continue.
Okay, so go ahead. I'm done with the third question. You can go ahead with the fourth question.
Okay, so she has mentioned so many things that they did. She's mentioned encouraging the teachers first. The teachers were the first people to look at, to encourage them, because a lot of them also had gone through some emotional and social conditions too. So they have to be encouraged to take them on all these online things. Some of them never even knew how to teach through using the virtual means. And then there was this reward system she mentioned, not monetary. And then, if you want to know what it was, you can always give her a call behind. You can put the chat and they will give you a response. And then she kind of also said that they were communicated to adequately. Communication is very key. They communicated to the teachers adequately the model of engagement they expected from them. It wasn't just like throwing the teachers there, okay, you need to engage them and all that, but the communication was made to them adequately. And then there was a kind of sharing of responsibilities between the parents and the school. The school, in fact, the parents even had the bulk of it. So and all those other ones, and then reduction of subjects that are being taught online, very key. Thank you so much, Mrs. Toyi. And I'm going to also ask you another question. Her own session is question and answer session. How are you supporting teachers who are coping with students and parents' engagement? How are you supporting them, these teachers who are coping? Because it's not actually easy. Now, it is also, they are not just coping with students, they are also coping with the parents who are assisting the children at home to learn. How are you supporting the teachers? I want to tell you something. One of my friends in the education in sectors once told me that what she does is she gives an amount for data, for example, to the parents. So if they needed to use 1 megabyte, she gives about half of it, and the parents, pay for the other half and all that. Same she does for the teachers. So how have you been able to support teachers who are coping with both students and parents engagement? Because in this case, you're also engaging parents to help engage these students.
Okay, so that's huge. I want to pick up from the story of your friend. That's huge, and that's really going the very far length to get that done. I would like to first of all say that we had to, most of the schools that I work with are on break currently, so we had to go on break yesterday, and most of them are going on break for at least 1 to 2 weeks, 3 weeks, depending on the school. So I would like to start from there. So because there is a need to recreate, to recuperate. Being a teacher is a very daunting task, which requires a lot of mental energy. And of course, we know that having to run the online school, some started in April, others started May, some, for online school for close to 2.5 to 3 months was huge. And so we had to try to ensure that they actually, most of them vacated yesterday to return in another 2-3 weeks, depending on the school. Secondly, what we also did, like I said earlier on, was to give them a form of support system to reward indicating expectations, because we also had to spell out what the expectations were. Like I said before, it differed from school to school, okay? So the wearing general expectations was based on level of expertise, the social and economic status of the school, the location, and so many other factors to mention but a few. Aside from that, of course, yes, there's a place of the technical support. So we knew that some of the teachers had more technological expertise than the other, and so we had some form of peer mentoring and peer teaching among different staff in the school, and then we have the overall supervisor, which will most of the time calls back to give us feedback about how things are doing. Now, for the parents, of course, one of the biggest supports was to charge peanuts for the online school. And in some cases, like there's a school that we actually have in Abuja, we ran it for free for 2 months, and then we eventually charged something very little the third month. And that was huge, because the truth was that the school was still incurring a lot of losses. We still had to pay teachers. And then, of course, by the third month, we had to just come up with a strategy. And then, of course, basically, I think for that particular school in Abuja, the beautiful thing was that some parents were also ready to support the school outside what they were expected to pay. Some other parents came to support one way or the other. Some parents supported the teachers with food stuff, basic items for them to at least keep body and soul together. So those were some form of very practical support that were provided for the school. And like I said, the schools, we had to go back and forth, keep reevaluating, keep diagnosing, and keep profiling solutions from time to time on how they could move on with engagement and the online teaching and learning experience, basically.
Okay, thank you so much. I think most schools also adapted to what she just said now. Most schools helped in one way or the other. Like I said, I gave an example of a friend of mine, and then the charges were less. Parents were charged less. They were not actually, it was not like the normal school fees and all that and all that. And then the peer mentoring and teaching among the staff, it's also very important. Like she said earlier on, of course, there are teachers that are not at the same level. They are not at par with others. So it's important that we bring these ones that are less knowledgeable in the use of technology with those who are knowledgeable. For example, I'm just using technology, for example, they mentor each other, they teach each other, and then that is collaboration. And so that we get the desired results that we need for the school and the children. Thank you so much. And lastly, before you jump out, I know you have another engagement for 3 o'clock. So how are you? You've mentioned some of these things, but I want to also for you to clarify this. How have you been dealing with the variables in all this, like the internet access, for example? You could even start this meeting and the internet decides to just go off. Okay, one thing or the other will just happen, and teaching will not be interesting. And these students that are not even, they are hyperactive, they don't even want to sit in one place. And as maybe the internet is not coming up and all that, they get frustrated, they leave. How have you been dealing with that? Such variables like internet access, computers, other resources that may or may not be present for the school and students. For example, I know in some areas you don't even have NEPA lights. There's no electricity. You don't have electricity, and parents are spending money on generator, fuel, generator getting bad, and all that, and students won't learn. Of course, you have your timetable probably from 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock, and there's no electricity. There's no data. Data is not cheap in Nigeria.
There's no device in some cases.
So that's on the part of the children and parents. And the same thing for the teachers. There are no computers for teachers to use to teach and all that. Do you have any experience of some schools that you managed that they did not actually have probably an ICT lab where you have laptops they use for teaching, and they have to go and make do with laptops or buy laptops or what or something like that? So how did you deal with such variables during this period? I'm sure you're still handling that even now.
Of course, yes. All right, so I'm going to be talking about a very low income school that I also work with, because I've been mentioning most of the highbrow schools. And that brings to mind, this particular school actually had to literally shut down because the school couldn't afford to pay the teachers. They couldn't afford to run any online school because there were no devices. There was no internet connection. The school is actually in a remote place in Ogun State, where the tuition is still something at about 15,000 thereabouts. So the first thing we did was to conduct a poll. How many parents have technological devices, at least a WhatsApp-enabled phone, as compared to parents that don't even have access to devices? And then we had close to 40% of the school population they have the technological devices, and the remaining 60% did not have access. So we had to first of all make that decision. What are we going to do? Are we going to leave the children that don't have access to the devices? Most of the teachers as well didn't have the smartphone. They didn't have the enabled smartphone. And so it was a critical scenario. It was a critical time. So the first thing we had to do was to communicate via SMS. That's a short message service to everyone, because we know that was the way we could reach the whole school community. To communicate to everyone the challenges on ground and the fact that we did not want to leave any child behind. And so we had to do that, first of all. Secondly, what we did was to send electronic worksheets to parents that had WhatsApp enabled phones. While for those that did not have, we had to print physical copies, and some of the teachers had to go deliver the worksheets physically to the children at home. And so after a period of about a month, all the worksheets were collected. And those, of course, we had challenges with parents having to send back the electronic worksheets that were being worked upon. So we had to, of course, again, send out teachers to follow up and then get those things back. And that was how we were able to stay through in the month of May. The truth was that the month of April, we couldn't do anything tangible. We couldn't engage the children, and that was the truth. Because we needed to be sure we wouldn't be leaving any child behind. So I had to give this hypothetical example because this was a very difficult and tough nut to crack as at that time. But that was what we were able to come up with. And of course, they didn't pay a dime. They didn't pay a dime. And because they didn't pay a dime, it wasn't really sustainable. And the school, the school leader and the school owner had to let us know she's so sorry she can't actually continue to afford to do that. And so we had to just leverage on communication to get our message across. And so basically that was what we were able to do.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Toyi Sam Emehelo. She's a consultant actually. She doesn't own a school, but she has these added services for schools. And what she has actually communicated to us are actually things we can take back home with, and put in practice so that we achieve our desired goal for these students. See what I'm happy Mr. Odogwu is here, and there's another director from the Ministry of Education that is here because she's been talking about private schools. Now, there are government schools, even in Lagos, that don't have access to internet and all that. It's also applicable to them. I don't even know how the Ministry of Education would have managed this scenario. I'm going to ask Mr. Odogwu to actually throw more light to that because I'm coming. Okay. Okay. You can go on.
Sorry for the interruption. Like I said, the school was actually located in Ogun State. So while we were communicating, we had to tell them that the local TV and the local radio station had programs running, okay, which they could actually leverage on for the children to learn. So those were part of the things we did as at the second phase when we couldn't continue running the cost for the online school and the worksheets and what have you. So we had to communicate to let them know the specific channels, radio stations in which the children can still get to learn one thing or the other in the course of the day. And of course, we still keep sharing tips on WhatsApp and through SMS on how they can engage the children and protect them as well. We had safety issues, we had some other issues, coming up by the reason of children being idle and parents not really having time to adequately take care of them. So these were most of the things we did post the main implementation project, which we ran for the whole month of June.
Now, let me ask a question. Was this project like a non-profit kind of project? Was it a private school, first of all? Was this project for non-profit? We're just doing it for a humanitarian purpose, or was it a paid project or something?
Of course, definitely, it's not a paid project. It was humanitarian. A school that can't afford to pay the teachers. I mean, it was more of my own contribution or our organization's contribution. Low.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mrs. Toyi Sam Emehelo, for this insightful talk or presentation this afternoon. I have actually learned a lot. That means that we also can go out there and help out some schools and parents that cannot even afford a cell phone. Like she said, no cell phone, they could only communicate through SMS. And teachers, even against all odds of COVID-19, walked or drove to the school, to the community to distribute this printed out worksheets for the students, and went back to pick it. It's commendable. Thank you so much for what Core Skills are doing. That is the organization she actually runs, Core Skills. There have been so much. Thank you, Mrs. Emehelu. We're going to get back to you. Okay, thank you so much. And I'm going to call on Mr. Odogua Ayotunde Olatumbo. But before I call up Mr. Olatumbo, I want to just make an introduction of my boss, my CEO, who has been on the background and hasn't said anything. I know that he's going to come up sometime to say something to us and make a contribution. He's been at the background and monitoring this event. Is Mr. Kenneth Odushola Stevenson. Mr. Kenneth Odushola Stevenson, please, can you say hi, good afternoon to participants and our panelists?
Well, let me just say very big thank you. So I've been listening, and I'm sure that we'll still have a lot to discuss in the next couple of minutes. It's been an awesome afternoon, we started very well with the presentation from Dr. Mrs. Obaji. She actually laid the foundation for a school, because before if you don't plan, you plan to fail. So in other words, what she had done for us this afternoon was to say that when you establish a school, you must first of all understand the importance of curriculum. And when you have a proper curriculum, well engaging for a curriculum, it will be an exciting journey for the students and also for the teachers. So we truly appreciate that. And then the second speaker, who took us through question and answer, we truly appreciate that, because the fact of the matter is that engaging the students at this point has been quite I've seen quite a lot of things. It's been very challenging, because sometimes it's not whether we like it or not, but this is new normal. But what is important is that we find it extremely difficult to keep students sometimes to sitting down and not being distracted by going to play games with their phones. So these challenges are there. And then what we have seen today is that some now that there's a bit of relaxation in terms of movement and social distancing, some schools have decided to now start having some home teaching for their children. The usual students, they now say, okay, I only have 2 or 3 children that are going to school, so can you just come home and teach them? At least with that, you can have less people in the environment. So I think so many things are going on, and what you said about engaging the student by even the parents, because what we see is that at the initial stage, some schools were asking the parents to make contributions in terms of the learning, in terms of data, and also the resources that have been done. But at the point, they all stood it down. So I'd said because of cost, because they were not making money at home, so why were they going to be funding those data stuff? So challenges have come, but then in terms of re-engaging them now into this new reality, it's very important that we just start changing the narratives to be able to discuss properly how we can re-engage and these students all over the world. Apart from 1 or 2 countries, they are still at home, and even in the United States today, some states are saying that they are starting school on Friday. So it's been challenging for parents, it's been challenging for students, it's been challenging for even the teachers who are not really being paid over time. So I think it's important for us to continue to engage and also to be able to understand, because some people may have to you see, there's a need from from the perspective for Dr. Mrs. Obaji, there's a need now to be able to now incorporate this e-learning into our curriculum. So because it has come, whether we like it or not, and some schools are going to adopt it at a point, even during summer schools. Therefore, it's important that, we start at engaging and also incorporating this virtual learning into our curriculum, and also the way we do virtual learning and what responsibilities are for each person, including the parents and the teachers, and it must be defined properly. So I'm still here. I would like to say let the conversation continue. We thank all the speakers so far, and let's continue.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kenneth Odushola Stevenson. I had called up Mr. Odogua. Mr. Odogua, please, can you come up to take the topic on knowledge gap and closure? How do we close the knowledge gap that has been created naturally? Now, this knowledge gap is like COVID-19 has created this, because we know that a couple of schools have not done anything. They have not even done any virtual learning. And at the end of the day, when schools resume, everybody is going back to classroom to start from where? Is it from where they stopped during the virtual teaching, online virtual teaching during COVID, or is it from where they stopped before the COVID lockdown? So Mr. Odugua is taking us on that, closing the knowledge gap. You're welcome, Mr. Odugua.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. You're welcome.
Dr. Van. Good afternoon.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
My listeners and my co-speakers. I want to thank you very much for this beautiful discussion. And I want to say that virtual learning, because of virtual, it's because of is COVID-19 that popularized virtual learning in Nigeria. Do you agree with me? Yes. It's COVID-19. And I want to inform you, or maybe to recall, that the first index case of COVID-19 happened in Lagos on 27th of February, to be precise, 2020. And I want to give kudos to our #1 citizen in the state, that is Governor Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu, for his courage, for his vision, for his resilience, and for his proactiveness. Because you will agree with me that if it were to be another person who cannot, display all these leadership skills that has been displayed by our action governor, only God knows where we would have been by now. You and I will not be sitting comfortably like this. Engaging in this type of discussion. So, on this note, I want to give kudos and honor to whom it is due. Let's give it to him. He's our action governor. Thank you so very much. Having said that, on behalf of Lagos State Ministry of Education, under the able leadership of Mrs. Folashade Adefisayo, I bring warm greetings to all my listeners, students and teachers, youth, parents and guardians, corporate all the stakeholders, including all the lovers of education. So thank you very much. It was this, the emergence of this COVID-19 actually caused a lot of setback to every aspect of the economy, including the education sector. And that is why we have so many schools, all the schools throughout the globe have closed down, closure of schools. And we are left with only one option. The only option left now with us is virtual learning. Virtual learning. And this virtual learning, I would say, refers to individual differences, individual deficiencies in the application of information technology to virtual learning. And there are gaps, where this is where our knowledge is, this is where the expected level of knowledge that we need to acquire. So there is a gap between the two. And we'll be looking at those gaps now and how to close all these gaps. And #1 I have with me here is a limited student feedback. Limited student feedback, or there is no instant feedback when we talk of virtual learning. Unlike the traditional classroom setting where you can get an instant feedback from the students or from the learners. I was saying limited student feedback. We don't have a instant feedback in case of virtual learning. And secondly, we have a social isolation. Social isolation. The second one, we have social isolation. Social isolation as a result of virtual learning. You know, unlike the traditional classroom setting, where there is a lot of interaction between the teacher and the student. But in case of virtual learning, you hardly see this interaction. So the teacher has to do a lot to bring about communication into the setting. We also have there's a strong demand for self-determination and time management skills concerning virtual learning. So anybody that will succeed in virtual learning must have a very strong determination and must be able to create a self-motivation for him or herself. Because if you are not motivated, motivate yourself. Otherwise, you will not succeed in virtual learning. Another gap is this cheating of prevention of assessments is very complicated in case of virtual learning. Very, very complicated, unlike in the normal classroom setting where you can easily detect cheating. So in case of virtual learning, it's more complicated than the normal classroom setting. Another gap that I can identify here is that online instructors focus more on theory rather than practicals in case of virtual learning. So we are saying to the virtual line providers to be more innovative and come up with strategies that will make them even to focus on the practical aspects. Another gap is that virtual learning does not touch all the subjects. It's limited to certain subjects. Like engineering courses, engineering subjects, you can't have they have a difficulty in teaching it virtually. Also, online learning is inaccessible to a large of computer illiterates. We have a lot of computer illiterates. That's why the fact that so many people are having phones here and there is not everyone that is a computer literate. So for them to access virtual learning will become very, very difficult. And I want to thank God for one thing that Lagos State is doing. The Office of Special Advisor on Education, we have a program that is called Digital Skills Initiative Lagos. It was formerly known as Code Lagos, but now the name has changed to Digital Skills Initiative Lagos. I think with this one, we can be rest assured that the level of literacy will be improved upon. How is Lagos State government preparing to address the growing knowledge gap in our public schools? For your information, there is going to be reopening of schools in Lagos State on Monday, 3rd August 2020, and it is for only the SS3 students. Only the final year students in our students in all our technical colleges. That is Tech 3, so that they can prepare for their final exams that is around the corner. So with effect from Monday, 3rd of August, we are going to be reopening of schools in Lagos State, only for those terminal classes that I've mentioned. Also, there is the Lagos State government has released guidelines on schools reopening. Excuse me. Also, Lagos State government has released guidelines on schools reopening, and these guidelines are for the safety of the students and teachers and all the workers in schools. So we have to make sure we observe them. And these guidelines include fumigation of all the school environments, including all the offices, all the classrooms, including desks and benches of students. Anywhere that people normally use that they enter will be fumigated. And also provision, it includes provision of running water, provision of running water and soap for washing hands. There's another provision of hand sanitizer is also inclusive. And this issue of social distance, even in the seating arrangement of students, as they resume on Monday, there is going to be 1 meter distance in seating arrangements. So these are part of the guidelines that the Lagos State government has released for our students, so all our schools that will reopen come Monday. And also I want to inform you that Lagos State government has just distributed some mobile phones and radios to our students. At least that's that event took place at what's the name of this school? In Oshodi, one of our schools in Oshodi. I think Mafoluku Senior Grammar School in Oshodi, in our education district 6. So these mobile phones are preloaded with a curriculum for SS1, SS2, and SS3 in all the subjects, and with data for 6 months, 6 months data. So they have been preloaded with all this and then given to our students, SS2 students. And the radios were distributed to our students as well in JS2 to start with. And because this happens because there are some nooks and corners in the state where we have where they don't normally have electricity and where they cannot hear of what government is doing. And for your information, Lagos State government, since the lockdown, our students have been learning. There is no stop in learning, no stop in education in Lagos State. For all our students across all the levels of education, starting from primary schools, junior secondary schools, senior secondary schools, including our technical colleges. We have our radio and television programs being viewed on air on certain days. And all these, like for instance, there is this, the total education show that we normally hear on every Monday and Thursdays on TVC television at 4:30 p.m. That's just for instance. And then concerning our primary schools, we have LASUBEB, the classroom in your home. LASUBEB, classroom in your home for all our primary pupils. So they stick to their television and then they keep on learning. They keep on learning. That is Lagos for you. Apart from that, we have been training and retraining our teachers, constantly, so that to prepare their minds towards the resumption of schools. For this long lockdown, all our schools have been closed down. And then by the time these students will resume, they may tend to come up with certain challenges. Starting from maybe hunger, sexual abuse, domestic violence, maybe social problem, psychological problem, emotional problem. So these teachers have to be trained. The Lagos State government is out to train our teachers so that they can show love to these students and then reassure them that this pandemic cannot change their destiny, that their bright future that they have, they will still have it. COVID-19 or no COVID-19, their destiny will not be changed by the grace of God. And thank God for our able governor, who is I will say it again. Because when you have an able leader who is showing you the way, who is displaying the leadership quality, you too, you have some level of confidence. He was able to, handle this COVID-19 and then look at it on the face and then, by the grace of God, I know we are winning the battle. by the special grace of God, we will win this battle against COVID-19. Not only in Lagos State, across the length and breadth of Nigeria, and throughout the world, we are going to win by the special grace of God. Also, Lagos State government has trained our staff. Some of our staffs are evaluators. Our staff from Office of Education Quality Assurance, Lagos State government has come up with a 2-day safety practice training on schools resumption for all these staff, so that they can go all out to assess the level of compliance of all our schools, including both public and private schools, so that they can report back and say, this is what they are doing, and then issue clearance to those who have been able to get it right. Also, Lagos State government is all out for intervention programs through the public-private participation. Yes, Lagos State government is all out through this PPP program. For instance, First Bank of Nigeria donated mobile phones just to collaborate with our program. That is and then there are other well-meaning Nigerians who donated radios, some books, even for this program. So I'm using this medium. I'm using this opportunity to call on well-meaning Nigerians and corporate bodies to still come even to partner with Lagos State government. Because to us, we are winning this battle by the grace of God. And also, the Ministry of Education have plans to combat and remedy the gap. Excuse me. Like I said, through all our various programs. And then what will be the long-term consequences if the gap continues to waves of if the gap continues with waves of COVID-19? I tell you, if the gap continues with the waves of COVID-19, education may be totally eroded. Many students of lower economic class may not be able to follow the curriculum online due to inaccessibility of digital tools, and may be left behind at the end of the day. And also, if this gap continues, efforts being made by the state government to bring back the out-of-school children to school may be jeopardized. In part, some of the learners already in school may eventually become out-of-school children if care is not taken. And lastly, let me say this, that the existing curriculum being used could become obsolete, and hence the need for its review to bridge the already created gap. So these are part of what the state government is doing, and we are prepared even for the reopening of schools come Monday for SS3 and Tech 3. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Mr. Odogowa. From what he said, the Lagos State government has been providing resources for students, especially the public school students, to study while this pandemic lockdown has been taking place and all that. And he's elaborated on how much the Lagos State government has put in place to enable students to learn from home. And I know that some of them learn from television and radio stations and all that. But I still have a challenge in this area, Mr. Odogowa. My challenge is the resources the students, yes, the Lagos State government have given these resources for students to study from wherever they are. But what is the assurance that these students get to the point where they get these lessons or teachings from probably this television or the radio or whatever medium you are using, bearing in mind the challenges we have in this country in terms of the electricity light, the data issue, and all that. Please unmute yourself, please.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Like I said, because of this challenge, that's why state government has come up with this bold step to distribute radios and mobile telephones to some of our students, and it will still continue because the government is aware. Because the government is aware of the fact that all of them might not be accessible to this program due to that issue of electricity supply. That's why the radio has to come in there, and then mobile phones as well to help them. And these mobile phones, like I said, has been preloaded with 6 months data to help the parents. So these are the challenges that government is aware of, and that is why the government is taking this bold step.
Okay, Mr. Odoguwa, please. Yes. Because I have to, we also have children. I have children that are also in public school. I have not gotten, my children have not gotten these phones. When are these phones ready to be distributed to the students, or the radio or whatever to be distributed to the students after 4 months of the pandemic issue? As at date, I have not, my children living around me haven't gotten these radios. When will they be distributed to them?
Like I said, the flag off took place on Tuesday, last Tuesday.
Oh, just last week Tuesday.
Last Tuesday, So it's a gradual process. Some have gotten, others will still get their own as time goes on.
Okay, somebody is asking this question. We want to redirect you to tell us how the deficiencies in learning can be bridged. How do we bridge these deficiencies? How do we bridge this gap? Yes, you have told us, we have seen a lot, you have mentioned the gaps. How do we bridge these gaps now?
Okay, for instance, the issue of limited student feedback. By the time we group these students together, give them group assignments, we'll be able to get peer-to-peer this feedback from groups, and then they'll be able to think together and then come up with ideas together, and then that will be a solution to that. Another one is the issue of cheating prevention in virtual learning. There is this online package, this software that is called Exemity. Exemity, just like a digital invigilator. So that one can take care of this gap that I've mentioned there. And I say that online instructors should focus more on they should develop innovative mechanisms that will make them even to focus more on the practical aspects, practical subjects now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. He's rolled off a lot of things that if Lagos State, for example, government is doing. So probably there are other people from other states. I'm sure they can also take cue from here and implement such so that some of these gaps created already can be taken care of. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask Dr. Baji. Dr. Baji, please. I just want to ask you this question. How else can we close this gap? Please, can you unmute Dr. Baji, please? How else can we close this gap, this knowledge gap that have been created? You know, like we started by saying that, of course, when the pandemic came in, a lot of students, even now, there are students that have not taken even one course online. And school will resume, WAEC will be, students will be taking WAEC on subjects that they have not been taught for 4 months. Some students, I'll repeat, I know I'm speaking out of experience. There are some schools, there are some students that have not taken part on this online learning. And exams, WAEC exams will start on the 17th of August, if I'm not mistaken. How do we help these students? How do we close this gap that has been created because of this? within the 2 weeks, for example, for the SS3 student, within the 2 weeks we have before they take the exams. I just want Dr. Obaji to just give us a voice, lend us a voice there, please. Because she's she's actually in the institution. She's a senior lecturer. So you come into your class and you start teaching the students where you stopped before the lockdown, or where you are starting after lockdown, from where some students have taken lectures and some have not. And then, of course, you can imagine what the class will look like, because we're imagining how our classes are going to look like when we resume.
Anyway, thank you for the question. It's a very big challenge. Some of the challenges have been mentioned: lack of electricity, the high cost of data, and all that. In as much as we should, as educators, try to, develop new ways to beat the challenge, to meet the challenge, it's still it's still a long way, because these factors,
we're having problem with
the high cost of data. Some students don't even have clothes in the near future. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Can you hear me? Yes.
Okay. I'm saying that this gap we may not be able to bridge it in the near future for the following reasons. Even this online thing is becoming elitist in nature, because some people think it's the children of the well-to-do, those. And even before COVID-19, some people were doing online teaching.
Yeah.
So it will be very difficult for those who have what of those in the remote areas. Like in my case, our final year students are back. What we do, prepare my slide emails, they download it, and we communicate on WhatsApp and all that. But if we say we are going to wait until everybody gets, to even train the manpower, because you don't just carry teachers to the classroom and say, okay, online. Some of my colleagues tried it. I was asking one the other day, what was your experience? Initially, many of them came on board, but as the weeks went by, the numbers started dropping. They had complaints, poor network, like we are complaining now. The internet is not stable, and so many things, so many factors. So honestly, learning. But the only thing now is that we should try. I'm happy we are having this conversation now. We should try to see how we'll be able to, because not even when COVID goes, another thing may come up. So what will happen to our learning? That should be our focus now. How we are going to make sure that we beat this challenge. But for now, in as much as virtual learning seems to be the only option, honestly, it is not feasible for now, in my own opinion. And then the issue of students going to write WAEC when they have not been taught, personally, I feel safety first. I don't feel why schools should be resuming. Okay, assuming everybody dies, then who will go to school? I agree with the decision that schools, I kept reading conflicting reports. Some say 2021, even if it's 2021, and our students are alive and healthy, while at the same time, stakeholders start to think of how they will put the remedies in place. Honestly, to close the gap now is going to be very difficult, in my own opinion. It's not even feasible right now.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Yes,
let me just let my voice to what she just said. And also,
okay, sir.
I'm must commend Lagos State, within this period, because the first focus of Lagos State was to first of all stem the spread of the virus. That was the first line of action, especially when the thing came. The second line of action from Lagos State point of view was to now see, okay, how do we get enough resources in terms of infrastructure, medical infrastructure, to take care of the pandemics or the sick or people who are, so that we don't spread it. The third leg of that was, okay, the schools, which was in March, the schools, look, we don't want to expose the children or the teachers or the parents to this COVID-19, let's close the schools. And this happened. And in the process, I do know that they took cognizance of the fact that it was a very critical period within the context of the education curriculum and the timing that students were to be preparing for exams. So what they did was to get so many TV stations or radio stations to be teaching. I know of, Wazobia FM, Wazobia TV. They were doing a lot of teaching. And, but the knowledge gap we're talking about, really, they tried as much as, Lagos State tried as much as possible to bridge that gap within the context of the pandemic to get people to be able to do things. I know resources is enough because, first of all, you want to take care of the sick. And then make sure that you have resources to be able to take care of those that may come up with the disease and then, moving forward. Which is why I still commend Lagos State for actually being proactive about this whole process. However, the challenges are there. I believe that the distribution of the radio, all these phones things came a bit late. I do appreciate the challenges.
Yeah.
It came a bit late, maybe because of resources, maybe because of, we must commend them for even thinking it out at all, because this is going to be here for a while. But it's been stated very clearly that the children in rural areas and underdeserved communities in Nigeria have been left behind because they don't have this access, which is what Dr. Ogbaji has been saying, that they don't have access. They don't even have the radio. They don't have the things. And as a matter of fact, the parents are poor, among the poor, because, they can't even afford the data in the first place. And when they could afford the data, the networks are not available. Exactly. Because, so we must appreciate each state government, federal government in understanding this. But I want to believe that we have a lot of catching up to do. What this has done to Nigeria, most especially in African countries, is the fact that we need to close the gap by creating infrastructure within the local communities. We need to create infrastructure in local communities, because this has exposed and also given us the opportunity to know how far we can go, just in case another pandemic happens tomorrow. And secondly, to also know where to go now that the pandemic is going to be here for a while. Therefore, the communities, which is why we were commending Lagos State for actually thinking outside the box by providing these radios, these transistor radios that can go to communities, so that they can actually get the underprivileged people to get their children to get to school. Because I can tell you, most of the students that are doing exceedingly well in academics most times are from the rural families, the poor families.
Yes.
And they do appreciate the importance of education, which is why it is important to get them to be close to where the knowledge can be bridged, and then have them to be able to get the required studies that they need going forward. I don't know whether the federal government was able to do the data. I don't know whether the federal government was able to do an assessment or research in terms of the underprivileged people at this time, because this opportunity was provided by the pandemic to now see how we can do, how many of the students really are in the rural areas. I know Lagos State must have done it, but you see, this is a country where we still depend so much on federal resources to be able to do anything. In education, or Lagos State is doing well because you have a lot of industries around that can actually fund from the VAT and also from taxes. But other states that don't have these facilities, we're going to have issues, because if they don't have the research, that's why you have the issues in the north as to the level of education. Most of them become amateurists, and then they are not able to go to school. So you now have Boko Harams who are telling them education is out of this world. So I believe that this conversation is a conversation that is very, very important. And the underprivileged people should be, at this point in time, and Lagos State also, the Ministry of Education should begin the research, if you have not started doing it, into how many rural communities is in Lagos State. How many of them within this period had access to this, virtual learning, whether it's by radio or what have you, so that you can actually do a catch-up kind of things as schools are beginning to, getting set to resume. We are saying that the one that wants to do WAEC should go. But what about the ones that are going to the level of going to prepare for WAEC? So what happened to them? So I think we need to think through this, and I must appreciate the speakers as well. So that's just my contribution.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. We have at least we've talked enough on this, and I see a chat. Somebody is saying, in closing this gap, we should do what he's calling peer tutoring. I don't know if Dr. Balogun is still around. Dr. Balogun, are you around? Dr. Balogun? Okay, Dr. Balogun. Okay, we may really go. Hello, is Dr. Balogun around? Dr. Balogun, yes.
Yes. I'm
okay,
still around.
Okay, good. Please, can you throw a little more light on peer tutoring?
Okay, the other time it was actually talking about grouping of students. Like we're talking about bridging the gap. Maybe by the time they resume, and you group some students that have been part of the COVID-19 remote teaching program with the other ones that didn't participate, then in the group, those ones that have actually learned something can actually put the others through. So that, in that process, the other ones will learn from the ones that have actually learned something during the COVID-19. So that you can use this type of method to bridge the gap. Because even the airlines, is not every one of them that participated. Some were complaining, most of them are salary earners. And some salary earners during this COVID-19, they were not actually going for the training and the rest. Because some of them that have their children in private schools, it's not that the salary is like they could actually afford it, but because of their training and the rest, the ESTA codes, that's what they use in funding their school fees. So because of this, they couldn't really, put their children in this remote teaching program. You'll see some of them will say, no, we've not been making much in my office, so I can't actually afford the program. So in that wise, when they resume, the other ones, because you want them to be on the same page. So those ones that have not actually participated can be in a group with the other ones. Then apart from that, continuous remedial programs can be, ongoing. It will be a continuous thing, so that those things that they have actually missed, they will learn it before going to the next. Because even now, we don't know whether federal government will say we should go to the first, a new session, or we should still do the third term. So whichever way, I think most of the private schools are ready. Okay. So if they say they should go to the third term, they should still do third term. I think schools will still be able to do it. It will even be fun, because by that time, since the students have been taught the content, so the students will now be teaching back. It will now be integrated learning. So whatever concepts they want to learn, they can actually bring it out. They can take it out of the classroom. They relate it to what is in their environment. And if they are saying they should go to the next session, so many of them, the private schools are prepared because they've already done the content. But what of the students that they've not actually taken part? So how do we, and that is why I said peer tutoring, you group them, and apart from that, you do continuous remedials. So that if they do a content in the morning, maybe of the new this thing, they can actually, a day to or a weekend before, they can organize, since they will be physically present. So the weekends now, they will be engaged during their weekends to have the content that will be like a foundation for the one they want to learn in the other, in the next class, or the next the topic that is a prerequisite to the one they want to learn. So there should be a bridging between the previous and the present, and even the future content. So I think that should be our focus. And I think Lagos State, they are on a good distance. That's why he couldn't talk much on the gap. in the respect of
because they were able to close the gap.
Exactly. He was actually talking about the gap between those ones that couldn't deliver technologically and the ones that they have actually, you know, those ones that were technologically less knowledgeable, they've been able to take them to a particular extent, and which is what we have done in most of the schools. I'm an educational technologist. My PhD is on educational technology. So all these things are actually not new to me, because my colleagues did their researches on, you know, WhatsApp and LMS and all these things. But the COVID-19 has actually brought it to, you know, the practical implementation, because we've been doing it as researchers, not to this extent. But thanks to the COVID-19, because though it's a negative thing, but at least it has brought its positive things. Because virtual learning, remote teaching, online learning, everything, it has come to stay. This is actually a remote teaching program, not the online learning program. Because remote is an emergency remote teaching. You understand? And the focus is actually on teaching, not the assessment. So when you want to talk about cheating and the rest, you look at a proper online learning program whereby you have the system in place, whereby you have remote sensing, you know, facilities that will actually monitor the students. And just like our speaker from Lagos State said, we have software that can actually monitor, you know, the cheating aspect. So, but the focus of the remote learning is actually to make the students to be in connection with the content, so that by the time they come back, to the classroom after COVID-19, they will not be like somebody posted that they will not be saying in beginning instead of saying in the beginning. You understand? So that they will not be.
I saw that video trending.
And that is what we are actually trying to do, so that they will still be in connection with the content. And I think I give kudos to Nigerian teachers. They have actually done something that we never thought they would do. Most of them couldn't even operate laptop, couldn't even operate their phones. They are now doing wonderfully well, and honestly, I am very happy. The other time we attended a conference, online conference with the Microsoft stuff, international conference. The same thing they were saying, that's the same thing that is happening in Nigeria, which is a good thing. We are on the same page with the world, the global world. And thanks to God and thanks to the Nigerian teachers. But please, our guy from Lagos State, help us talk to the federal government. They should look into Nigerian teachers' welfare. We need that, please. We need that, please. Speak to them. Everybody, not only state government, but federal government, they should look into the remuneration of the teachers. Because after doctors, I think they are the next people in this COVID-19. Thank you very much. Thank you for organizing this conference.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Balogun, for taking you.
Thank you, Doctor. But I think teachers are supposed to be first before doctors, because
I think so.
because the teachers are the one that will train the doctors.
Yes.
So,
okay.
So
thank you so much.
Maybe just to support what Dr. Balogun had just said. It is obvious that the pandemic has unmasked substantial inequalities in the education sector. Private and non-governmental organizations, you know, whether we like it or not, are working to salvage the situation. Projects such as DigiTrade and Tech for Nigeria, they are all being developed. You can look them up, and they are all doing something to properly develop the tools for education to make it available, especially in Lagos State. However, one major issue that may stem from the inequalities that these kids who currently cannot keep up with their peers because of inaccessibility to digital tools may never catch up, and will continue to feel the effect of this gap long after the pandemic is over. This may result in a severely diminishing pool of young adults who have not garnered the necessary skill to stay ahead in the future. With Nigeria already behind in preparing its young people for the workplace of the future, the effect of the pandemic further exacerbates this issue. There are measures that must be taken to help bridge the gap and the divide when the urgent needs of the pandemic subsides. They center around public-private partnership and government aids. And I have just said, Dr. Balogun, I just said that the federal government should do something about the teachers. There's no way we can continue to have private, you're on that side, public, you're on this side. When we use the same curriculum,
Yeah.
So therefore, there must be private-public partnership so that everything can fall in line. PP can do much to improve the quality of education and increase access to education for poor children in underdeserved communities. More schools in such areas, especially in Lagos, will go some ways to start shifting the teachers and students ratio, which has its hit alarming lows of 1.083%. So some World Bank reports has suggested some ways at which Lagos State can look at the World Bank report on education. So I think Lagos State is doing well. It's always the center of excellence. However, you know, I know that Madam in Dr. Obaji in Kaduna State, I know that they are fighting, they are battling with some other how to save lives than to save the student, because the killing that is going on around those areas is even more devastating than even the COVID-19. All right. So, but my question to Dr. Obaji will just is, you are teaching in the Nigerian Defense Academy. I don't know whether this has to do, whether they have issues or whether they are even closed, because it's a different kind of school altogether. So I don't know whether they are in school or how they are doing it or how they are managing, because I know, you know, they need to be, you know, to be alive with what is going on around the world, especially when they have to also use some international curriculum to train the soldiers, people who are in NDAs. So I don't know if Madam has, you know, can let on into some of these things and how it's been managed.
Well, unfortunately, I cannot answer anything regarding the Nigerian Defense Academy for security reasons.
Understand?
Yeah. So, but we are doing fine.
Okay.
We are doing fine. That's all I can say.
Okay. All right. It's understandable. It's understandable.
Okay. Thank you so much for the light being thrown. More on bridging the gaps. I think the most important thing is collaboration between the private and the public schools. Federal government should look into it. There should be collaboration, because it's the same curriculum the private schools are using, the same curriculum the government schools are using, and the same WAEC exams that the students are taking. So they should come together, and I know Mr. Oguduwa can take this message back to the Honorable Commissioner for Education. Who will relate it to the Federal Ministry of Education. Thank you so much for all your contributions so far. Thank you, Dr. Balogun, once again. I'm going to call in Mrs. Ronke Adeniyi. She's our last speaker today. Mrs. Ronke Adeniyi, you're welcome. And I know you are in the house, but I've not seen your face. You can just say hi to everybody coming in. I had to pull her up from her busy schedule. You're welcome. You're welcome, Mrs. Ronke Adeniyi. Good afternoon.
And thank you for inviting me. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here again.
Thank you so much. She's always been engaged in school matters. I like her energy. She has so much energy, and she's very passionate about it. She's somebody that could cry when she sees a child not actually performing or who is below performance. I have seen her demonstrate that, and I really encourage her, and I like her energy. So I'm just going to give a little a brief profile of Mrs. Ronke Adeniyi. Mrs. Ronke Adeniyi is fondly called Ronke Posh. She's a fun-loving, energetic, I just said it, an enthusiastic lady, a lover of God. She's a wife and a mom, and she's a serial entrepreneur and an educator. Ronke Posh is a certified and experienced Montessori directress. She owns the best preschool in Ikoyi called Posh Babies and Kids, and a primary school called Le Poche School. She also runs a children's entertainment company called Posh Party Parks. Ronke Posh is also a certified family life therapist and practitioner of neuro-linguistics programming, NLP. She uses this to coach and support parents in her parenting Facebook community called Parent Right. Today, Mrs. Ronke Adeniyi, fondly called Ronke Posh, is going to take us through mindful teaching practices. We have heard the foundation of it all is having the right curriculum, and then we listen to how to engage teachers, parents, students. We have also listened to how to close the gap that this pandemic has created. Now, how do we teach mindfully? So she's taking us on mindful teaching practices. You're welcome, Mrs. Ronke.
Thank you, Doctor, and thank you everyone for having me. It's indeed an honor to be here. So one of the things that I will start with is just to be mindful of the time. At the moment it's 2:15. So I have to be mindful of the fact that we have been on this session for a few hours. So I will try my best to wrap it up within 15-20 minutes. That is one of the ways that we can actually be mindful. We can be mindful by, I can tell everyone, if you will oblige to stretch your hands and just stretch, because it's been a long, if you want to get up, you can get up and just stretch, because it's mindfulness, and this is what our children.
I told you she's very energetic, guys. She's going to take us through this.
If I had the music go, I will play the music for us to just stretch and just feel good about ourselves, because it's not easy. And I really commend us for pushing and pushing and pushing through this pandemic, webinars coming out of our ears. So I will wrap this up as quickly as possible, but I will try and get all the points into it. When Dr. Van asked me to talk about mindfulness, I started asking her questions that what exactly does she want me to talk about? Not out of ignorance, but out of surprise. Because this is the first time, this COVID-19, I'm sure I've done over 50 webinars. And this is the first time anybody will tell me to talk about mindfulness. You remember I said, what exactly do you want me to talk about?
I remember, yes.
In Nigeria, we are being mindful. So I really commend this platform and the organizers for being mindful. Mindfulness is something that even Harvard University teaches as a whole program. And it's such a huge, massive, I can't even finish mindfulness, but I will just touch on some things that are important that we should be doing at this time. We've had so many outstanding speakers already today, so many outstanding contributions, but how are we going to be mindful going forward? So I'll quickly share my slides if I have permission now to.
Yeah, you do. You do have permission. Please share, please.
Okay, so let me pick up my slides. Thank you. So here we are. Okay. If you don't mind confirming to me that you can actually see.
Yeah, I can see it. Yes, it's up.
So the introduction has already been done. I will not belabor that too much. I'll just put that for the sake of completeness. What I've been told to talk about is mindful teaching practices. And I would begin with my areas of focus. So area of focus, the children. And we have our children that we want on a global scale. I've heard that our children are on a global scale at the moment, but it comes as a surprise to me. So I'm also learning as well. I don't have all the answers. But if you ask Ronke Poja, our Nigerian children generally on a global scale, that we can compete internationally at this time since the COVID-19. And we're not talking about the few children that are online. The few children are online. I'm sure they can represent maybe less than 10% of the whole country. You know, we still have the north that even before the COVID, many children don't even go to school. Some local governments, I understand, don't even have schools there. So those are also Nigerians. We're not talking about Lagos alone. So when we think about all those children and we factor them in, are we truly on global standards? Can our children compete head to head with children from Singapore, Australia, and around the world? If you ask me, I don't have the data to back it up, but just looking around and listening and following, I would say no. Now, are we raising local champions or we're raising global champions? Are we raising innovators or are we raising just children that will just be effective in Nigeria alone? What type of children do we really want to raise at this time, and how are we going to do it? We have the curriculum, we have the strategies and all that, but there's a softer side. There's this emotional intelligence that we need. There's this love quotient that we need. There's this mindfulness that we need so that we can work effectively with these children. A lot of these children have been at home. Whether they were doing lesson online, whether they were not doing lesson online, that's not the point. This is a crisis. How are they managing? How are they coping? How are they coping at this time? A lot of them, their parents lost their jobs. Some of them even lost family members. How are they coping at this time? Are we sensitive to that fact? When they go back to school, we want to bridge the knowledge gap. Are those children in a prepared state to even want to bridge any gap? Or are they mourning? Are they grieving? Are they missing their friends? Are they missing the playground? Some of them, if you ask my children and the post, they will tell you that I can't wait to climb the swing and the playground. But guess what? We may not be climbing that playground for a while, even if you come back to school. We have to be mindful of those facts that school is not going to be the same, at least not immediately. Things are going to change. Things have changed and they will continue to change. Look at all the measures, all the guidelines from the 52-page document that we have to implement in schools. How about the teachers have not been paid salaries for so many months, and we want them to come and bridge a gap? Are they going to be happy to even come back to work? Some of them have started businesses. Some of them have started leaving the sector, which is so sad because I don't even believe we have enough good teachers already. I think we need more people in the sector. Hence, I started doing free programs on my YouTube channel for people to go there. If you want to learn graphics, go and learn graphics, but don't leave the sector. Just find something you can do and still remain an educator, because we need educators. Already as it is, when somebody does not have a job, they say, go and teach. Now, what should I teach in? Go and do one teacher job until you find a good job. So people already believe that the brand of the teacher, those people that can drop out and stuff like that. But when the COVID happened, these dropouts are the ones that are supposed to save the whole world. So it's a double standard, isn't it? You want the people that you don't believe are good enough to be the ones to become technologists, to become IT service, to become developers overnight, and save the whole country. And I must echo what has been said already, that a lot of teachers really rose up at this time to do so much. But this lot of teachers, are they the minority, just like the children that are online? Are all the teachers in Nigeria, can we even say 80% of teachers online have started learning to use a computer, have started learning to go online, even if it's WhatsApp? Because I don't want us to focus on the bubble and be assuming that, Oyo State, Ogun State, Lagos State, all those sort of states, and maybe Anambra State and stuff like that. I want us to think about the Adamawa, the Kogi State, where I'm from, and places like that. Because I know when people in my Kogi State, the story is a bit different there. We have to be mindful when they come back. How about the parents? What are they going through? When this pandemic happened, one of the things that we did at Le Poche was, in fact, the first meeting we had was not a PTA meeting or anything like that. The first meeting we had was strictly for mental and emotional well-being and how to balance homeschooling at home. Because you can't give what you don't have. How does a parent that is going through so much challenges, maybe at work, at home, how does a parent that have 3 children, some of them in different schools, and all I want them to resume online at 8 o'clock? How does that parent manage it? How do they manage the cooking, manage all sorts of things? We have to be mindful. And mindfulness, they're just simple strategies. Some of them are already even practicing mindfulness. Just don't call it mindfulness. Someone like us at Lagos, we call it calm. So there are times when we just play very subtle, simple music in the background. And you will see that we'll just tell the children to just take it easy. Some people just call it quiet time. Take some time out and focus. Some people would say it's meditation. Some people will call it anything you want, but just be mindful. And some of us, sometimes we're going to do a mindful exercise. For those that will love to indulge, we'll do one before the end of the day, and to see how much of a difference it made. Even what we started with at the beginning, just stretching and doing something, we are just being mindful and being mindful of the fact that we have been sitting here for such a long time. And I must not come here and now start talking for another 1 hour if you know that I can truly deliver what I want to do in 15 minutes. Can I chunk the material up? Can I chunk it up so that people can get on with their lives, go and eat amala after such a long day? So we have to think of the children. We have to think about the educators. We have to think about everybody. In fact, mindfulness even goes as far as the government. Because the government are under pressure because everybody is pointing at them now. The government didn't do this. They did not give us phone. They said radio. They said television. They said this one. They gave some people phone there and they did not give some people. So the pressure is on. And guess what? We are the government because we are also human beings. The government were picked out from amongst us. We are the government. I keep telling everybody, we are the government of your children's education. So we must holistically, collectively do this mindfulness together. So, types of mindfulness, so mindful teaching practices. At this time when there are school closures, children are online, some people were sending electronic worksheets, and I know someone asked if we could have electronic worksheets. There are electronic worksheets, there are different apps that you can use as well. Those exist on my YouTube channel that you can actually use to interact with the children. They don't have to use paper all the time. We didn't really use a lot of paper at LaPoche during this virtual. We only did that for preschoolers because we wanted their fine motor and skills to develop very well. And there are doodle boards and stuff that children can actually use. But that's on the side. Okay. So at this time, mindful teaching practices, schools are closed. Teachers are upskilling. Some teachers, everything is not a blanket statement. Yes. Some teachers are upskilling at this time. They're expected to be superheroes and doing all sorts of things. What is the brand of the teachers? We had teachers going on social media and begging for money, and people were donating money as people were abusing teachers. We had a teacher that was saying she wanted to kill herself, all sorts of things online. I'm a social media person, so I see so many things online. But we must be mindful of the fact that when things like this are happening, this COVID pandemic is going to go away one day. And even if it doesn't go away, we are going to have to learn to live with it. Whatever digital footprint that we leave is going to be there forever. So a teacher that goes and starts tagging people and abusing people and saying they need money and putting their bank accounts on the internet must remember that when all this goes away, that people still have put that information on their phone. They've captured their screenshots, they've kept it. You might be looking for a job somewhere else, even if it's not in the teaching sector, and they will remember you for that post or for that begging. I understand that it's hard. And that was part of the reason. It's one thing to be saying, don't beg, don't do anything. What are the solutions that I had in place? So I started telling people online freely that what are the things that you can do? You can engage your mental faculties at this time. You have content. Can you create an ebook at this time? Can you even create sanitizers at this time? What are the things that you can do? I started putting content out on my channels to let people know that just create something. You can do social media management. You see something. Many people are organizing webinars these days. You see some flyers full of pictures, very horrible, full of nasty colors. Create something for them and then say, look, this is what I reproduced your content for you. Look how beautiful it is. You like it? I can do 10 for you for 5K or whatever the amount may be. That is pitching. Okay, how about your social media management? Schools are going to resume. Can I help you to be posting on Facebook and all your other places? What are the things that you can do? Within us is a lot. We must not just assume that we must go and sell meat or something. It's okay to do that. I've sold cakes before. I've sold many things in my life. In fact, my mom calls me Zio Chomalu or something, and she told me one name, and I'm always selling one thing or the other. So I'm a seller too. So that's not even the point. But my point is when we are doing anything, we should be mindful of the fact that we want to retain teachers in the educational sector, and we also want their brand to be good. When I spoke at APEN last year, one of the things I spoke about was the brand of the teacher. The brand of the teacher is already somehow. They don't expect teachers to have anything. They don't even expect teachers to have a car. They don't expect teachers to have any to look good, to smell good. There's an expectation of that teachers must be poor, they must be smelling, and all those sort of things. And we must change that narrative. And how can we change it? By being mindful. We've talked about salaries today, but however the government can help, they should please help because people need to eat. People are creating side hustles. Please, schools, people that are managing schools should not just say that teachers should not go and be doing things. Support them. If they want to do something and they're starting to patronize them, there's no need to be insecure. People just need, it's barely economy at the moment. People need to eat. We need to be mindful of the fact that people need to eat. Anybody that is not eating at the bottom of Maslow's food chain, and they will be struggling. Why would someone that has not even have a full belly and the children need food will come to the classroom and give their very best? So we need to be supportive of each other at this time. We should not condemn some people, because some people, teachers have already said that they want to put things online, but if the school owner to catch them, they're in trouble. They may lose their job at this time. But what is the alternative if salaries are not being paid at this time? And for those that can pay it, please be mindful. Please pay up the salaries, because I'm not personally convinced that every school does not have the budget to pay their teachers. LaPoche is a very, very small school, and to God be the glory, and with all humility, we have been paying full salaries since the COVID pandemic, and our school is only 8 years old. And I believe that there are schools, I know schools take loans and they do all sorts of things. I understand, I'm not saying that it's a blanket statement, but I'm convinced that there are still schools that can pay salaries they should please pay salaries. Be mindful of the fact that it's not only the teaching staff that are very important at this time. It's non-teaching staff are also important. They are part of your team. When school resumes, you're still going to need them. Whatever the stipend it is that you can give at this time, please be mindful. Okay. So mindfulness in the new normal. So they'll be calling it new normal. I don't even know them to say new normal. And the reason why I don't say new normal is because anything that is not normal is abnormal. Anything that is not normal is abnormal. There's no new normal in my own dictionary. I don't know what new normal is. If you are not fine, you are ugly. If you are not up, you are down. If you are not normal, you are abnormal. So are we going to be living in an abnormal world now? When you say, what I say new normal, living in abnormal. This is our abnormal life. This is our abnormal life. God forbid that we are not abnormal life. But this new normal, I'm sorry, I cannot embrace it because it is strange. It is strange for my child to come to school and be crying, and I cannot say sorry to my child. It is strange that they will fight on the playground and say, don't stop it. What are you? Stop it. Don't, if I catch it. Or it's strange for them to fall down, and I cannot rush to them to try and help them up because I don't want contact, because I want to wear, because I'm weary of it. A school is a social environment. Digitalization has been reduced in a school. Then can we still call it a school? Should we start calling it new school or abnormal school? What should we call it? Because it's weird that we go to school, especially the preschoolers, all the children that give themselves high fives, swings, all sorts of things that make school school. Contact makes school school. Contact is part of what makes school very, very special. And then now they're taking that social interaction away from us. So why don't you just stay at home and just continue and be antisocial if you cannot come to school and socialize? So when the school children come back, how are we going to be mindful? When we were online, we were asking our children, and they're very important. Part of our values, we are very child-centered. Okay, if you're child-centered, what were we doing to be mindful? We were asking our children how they were feeling. Most of them, they are missing their friends. So on Fridays, we would even have a hangout with our children where the teachers will just be on the side to monitor their activity and make sure everything's okay. But they'll just be talking to you like, hello, Lola, hello, Kenny, hello, Ruak, how are you? Is that your house? That was now the equivalent of hanging out. This is how that was now the playground. We'll just put all them on Zoom, anything they want to be doing and saying, we're just there to just monitor. So we had periods of time so that they can feel happy and they can connect with their friends. Why were we doing it with the teachers as well? We were doing the same thing. So we were doing it daily when we started. But as time got on and everybody was coping, because we were mindful of the fact at the beginning that it was challenging for some people. Some school owners will tell them, go and do Zoom, go and do that. But they themselves cannot do it. This is a crisis. Some people have never done Zoom in their life. And you're forcing them to go and do Zoom in somebody else's house. It's very, very challenging. Not being mindful. When that happened, there's something called situational leadership, which you had to, the role that many school leaders should have taken. Situational leadership implies that you yourself must do it. Lead by example. So guess what? I was leading it, even down to my preschoolers. The color of the week is blue. The color of the week is blue. The color of the week is blue. The itty bitty spider went up the sky. Because when they see me doing it, there's no more problem now. Ms. Ronga has done it. She has showed us how to do it. So anything that we were going to do, the training, everything. And then when we finish, how did it go? How are you feeling? There was a time that a teacher and a parent, there was stress because the stress came at this time, and the teacher and the teacher and the parent, there was a little bit of friction. She came on after school. We came on the Zoom call. What happened? She expressed herself. She cried like, "Oh my God, this thing is so stressful." It's okay to cry. It's okay to cry. Allow that mindfulness. Now, allow them to be able to express themselves at such a challenging time. Everything is not book. Because we are just delivering like robots. We must know that we are made of spirit, soul, and body. We are emotional beings, and we must nurture that emotional side of us. People are frustrated. Parents were frustrated all around, In fact, at some point, I was keeping quiet about what was happening at Leposh, because when there's a certain WhatsApp group and attacking schools and everything, and parents at Leposh school, they were cooperative. They were even suggesting things. Why don't we do that? Why don't we do that? I was thinking, is it normal? Is it new normal? Is it abnormal? What is this? What's wrong with my own parents? Or what is right with them because they were not giving us problem? The few that said they had challenges with the payment, they did not fight a some other group. They came to meet us. We were able to do arrangements. Why? Because mindfulness meant that communication is very important. Mindfulness meant that you get their thoughts. So we did surveys and we were hearing from them, not just what we want to do as a school. How are the parents? Are they able to pay? How are they feeling? Are they coping? Do they have enough devices? We were doing surveys. I told them you'll be hearing from us every day until we get to a place where we are at an equilibrium, where we are okay. Even I had a parent tell me that, Miss Roque, sorry, I had to send a newsletter to another school because it was full of empathy. Because empathy was lacking in many places. And that is why we had some people sending screenshots. I had people, schools telling me that their parents were saying that they would bring the school down, they will not pay, some schools were doing free, and all sorts of things. And I said to myself, hey, schools are doing free, all sorts of things. How can we do free? It's online, it's online. It's online, but the content creation, because we were not referring people to YouTube at Le Poche School. We were not doing that. We were creating content right from scratch. Right from scratch. If you go to Harvard, they are doing a course online. They will not say because it's online that it will come down. Value is value. And because, from my observation, Nigerians don't generally value education. That was why we had this big raging fight all over the place. And another thing that was observed was that a lot of people are in schools that they cannot afford. Because the COVID pandemic happened just before end of term. If it happened at just before end of term, you should already have been getting the money ready for the following term. You won't start screaming immediately about school fees. If you started screaming immediately, then that means you didn't have plans for the school fees. If you started screaming after third term that, how are you going to do September? I think, we will hear that one. But when you started screaming immediately, it means that you are looking for a way out immediately. People were dragging schools on social media, putting things online. That is not the way to go. That is not how a parent can be mindful, because their children are going to come back to that school at this time. How are they going to be mindful? Even parents, look at what happened yesterday where somebody is putting their children online. Is that mindfulness? The child is going to grow up and be stigmatized or traumatized. Look at what has happened. How is that parent being mindful? By posting private moments of the child online. So it's very important that we are mindful. We should not air our frustration. We should not look for likes online. We should just think of mental and emotional well-being. And if we are overwhelmed, we need to seek to get help. In Nigeria, the minute you say you want to see a psychologist or some mental health expert or something, they will say, weary, he's mad. No, you're not. It doesn't mean somebody is mad. Somebody can be stressed, and you just need to decompress, kind of. You just want to start again. And there's nothing wrong with speaking to somebody. And the person should be qualified, because some people believe, let me go and speak to the elder or the imam in church or somebody in the mosque or whatever the case may be. Sometimes you just need to speak to somebody that you don't even know, that's just a qualified, certified person. And then you will feel better almost immediately. Sometimes you need some sessions. How can we be mindful? Even with the children, constantly listening to them, their ideas and their suggestions. Sometimes we'll tell our children, go and draw how you feel. How do you draw a feeling? Obviously, we know that we don't know what a feeling means, but go and draw a feeling. How are you feeling? And then we'll put happy. And then they'll put all sorts of things, how they are feeling. What do you want? When school comes back, what would you like to do? Who will be the first? Just give them random questions. Just be mindful of how they are feeling. Take breaks. And then we know that the learners in the class are different. We have the visual learners, the auditory learners, the kinesthetic learners, auditory teachers, and all of a sudden, the learning has shifted mainly to visual. How about the auditory ones? We had a child, for example, who was highly kinesthetic in the classroom, and we want him to be sitting down in the classroom. When the mother said she doesn't know how to keep this boy on this, or to sit down just for 1 hour, we started to discuss with the parents, communication, critical thinking. You know what? We realized that he loves to draw, he loves art, he loves coloring. And he's highly intelligent. He's one of the most intelligent, if not most intelligent class academically in that class. So when the teacher is teaching, he's coloring and he's drawing. Guess what? He sits still throughout the 30-40 minute lesson. He gets the knowledge. Why? What did we do? We're mindful of the fact that the children in our class, they are different. Mindfulness, very, very important. We are very mindful of the fact that not every parent was able to pay. One thing I said at the approach, I said, no matter what, even if a parent should come, I told admin, don't call me that the parent cannot pay. What should you do? Anybody that calls, even though I did not tell them that, but I said anybody that calls and say they can't pay or anything, just say it's okay, they should continue, because I was not willing to leave one single child behind at this time, because the COVID came upon us. The parents did not bring the COVID, the children did not bring the COVID, the teachers did not bring the COVID. I did not know how we were going to do it, but I brought a newsletter, and in the newsletter I said, if you have money to support another parent, please feel free to do so as well. Because let me tell you something, this COVID is not everybody that is broke. Everybody is not broke during this COVID. There are people that are even making a lot of money right now during this COVID.
Exactly. Yes.
So we can't assume that everybody is broke. When people are saying that there's no money in the country, I just be looking because I know people are making money. This COVID, I wrote an ebook, 101 Tips to Stop the Beating and the Shouting, because people were beating their children at home. And in my Facebook group, I'm an advocate of no beating and shouting. There are ways around it. I did a book, I sponsored it on Facebook, I put it on YouTube, put it everywhere. Even today, 3K, bang, 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 put it on Paystack, put PayPal on it and put it in my bank account. Bang, bang, bang. It's an ebook. You don't even need to call me. It will download itself automatically. I've already put plugins on my website. Don't even talk to me, just get the book. It's working for itself. So don't assume that money cannot be made at this COVID. We just need critical thinking and creativity, ideas at this time. I have a friend, Emeka, right now. Just when Dr. Van called me right now and said, I have not joined, it was because I was speaking at his own event about how you can use YouTube to make a lot of money at this time. So I had to do a quick 30-minute session with him, and there are strategies to make money at this time. We just can't assume that if we're not collecting salary that money cannot be made. God has given us this brain, and this brain, there's so much insight, and we can make money at this time. Even coming to speak, it's not everywhere I go and speak that I will not collect money. Dr. Van, we have relationship. If somebody else wants me to go and talk, I have what they call a speaker's kit. I will just say, okay, that's fine. I would love to come and speak at your show. Can I have your email address? I'll just send you my speaker's kit. Some of them don't even know the meaning of speaker's kit. And then they see my bill there, they say, okay, how much you go pay? You know, even if you cannot pay the full amount, you pay me something. So I can't be going and burning data and intellectual property and content all over the place. Considering the fact that I told that I know beyond, I was telling my admin to count for me. I know beyond the shadow of that this COVID alone has spoken at over 50 places. And then I will not get paid for anything. I love talking about that, using my data. Really. I love Nigeria, but I must eat. You know, so everything can be monetized. Stuff can be monetized. So what is the impact on relationships at this time? Relationship between the teacher, you know, some people, children were natural teachers' pets, and now everybody on the screen now the same level at this time. How do you meet? How do you differentiate? There's differentiation. Now, what even makes this online thing so difficult and challenging, and people underestimated it, was the fact that the differentiation exists in the classroom. We had children that had additional needs. That normally some of them come to school with psychologists and stays in class, or therapists that stays with them to do intervention, maybe 2 hours or for the time when they're in school. Now, we do that at home. The therapists cannot come home because of the COVID pandemic. It's just we and the teachers. When we create material and content for the class, you cannot give them the same content because they are differentiated. You have to now, after being tired, sometimes 2, 3 a.m. was when I was sleeping in the beginning. Then you now create content for all those children that needed additional tasks, or they need activity-based class, or those ones that are not reading the same way. You will now create something else. Stressful. You will edit the video, you will record the video, you will sing the song, you will call their names, you know, you will customize their plans. Everything was done, an individual education plan for every child. And then people are saying that it's online. The back end of it was not funny at all. I always tell people that I'm sure that it's just the grace of God that even my husband is still married to me today, because I didn't have time. I was constantly here. Before all my children got to the level that they were able to sail, I was there. If you tell me something, I'll say, you're not sitting properly, you're not doing this properly. Say, for example, now I'm doing this Zoom thing. A lot of people do this Zoom. I'm doing a video that I want to put on my YouTube channel. If you're not there, subscribe. When you're doing a YouTube channel, don't look down. You should not be looking at a device. It shouldn't be like that. A lot of people put their design on the table, so they are looking down. That is not the professional way to be. You're also supposed to be looking straight up, and if you notice, my lighting is very, very nice. All those type of things, even though a lot don't think about it, we just get on Zoom, they are very, very important skills. They are very, very important strategies, and they separate that professionalism. They just show it off as, look at this video. I'm sure, don't you like how I'm looking shiny in this my video? The lighting is just, you know, it's just mindful of everybody, you know, and it's even, it helps engagement. Sometimes when you're blurry and the NEPA is taking light and you're still managing, you know, nobody wants to watch that. Even when they watch the replay, that you're there watching this bed, they don't want to watch that sort of thing. So how are the children managed at this time? Again, it's the minority of the children that are settled in Nigeria. It is the minority. We must not make the mistake of thinking that many of the children are settled. I don't have the actual data, but just thinking about the north alone, I keep saying it, just the north alone, there are many. I know the north a lot because I lived in Kaduna. That was where I was raised before I finished came to Queen's College. I was in Kaduna, so I know how children are all over the place, not going to school, and that was then. Not to even talk of now. There's a lot of confusion. There's anxiety at this time, especially the older children. A couple of weeks ago, parents were calling me and telling me that their children were masturbating online or watching pornography, joining WhatsApp group. I had to create a video and put again on YouTube to say this is how to tackle it. When you see your child watching porn, what do? You kill yourself. You know, you don't kill yourself. They've already watched it, and some of you are still watching it. Some of you are even still doing it. I told them on the show. So your parents are doing it, but the one that they see their children doing it, hey, it's a sin. You go to hellfire. All those kind of things. Be mindful. Be mindful that they are online. You yourself should have been tracking them. The software to track the children, like QO Studio, like a family link, like screen time. You can monitor their screen time. Make sure that they're not in their room with Wi-Fi. Make sure that they're in open spaces in the house. You know, there's so many ways that you can stop a child from watching pornography. Discuss it. Be open about it. Tell them, especially when they're teens. People masturbate. People do watch pornography because it was so common amongst the teenagers. That's what they were doing. They were sexting. They were sending pictures of their nudes to other friends, and they were getting into trouble. They were touching themselves in front of their friends and getting into trouble. Parents were catching them. So my parenting group was blowing up because people were complaining. If I one called me in the middle of the night one day, she said, "Ronke, if not because of you, I would have killed my son by now." I said, you know, he said, I caught him. I said, it's okay, calm down. If they don't have nothing to do, that's what they will be doing. You just have to educate them. You have to educate them. So I had to invite experts like Prince Fowowe, Taiwo Akinlami, all the Nigerian leading experts in child protection and all those sort of things to have a webinar. It's on the YouTube channel. You can go and watch it there if you need help for schools and everything. To engage, subscribe, it's free. All those material content I keep putting out there because we need to be mindful of those children, what they're doing at this time. A child will not just decide that I just feel like manipulating. Let me go and do it. There's a reason. There's no enough adequate engagement at this time. So you must ensure, you must fill the gap. If you don't want the child to do something at a particular time, so between 9 and 10, they're not doing anything. So tell them what to do. What are they going to be doing at that time? There's nothing to do, so they'll tamper with themselves. So some children don't even care whether they go to school or they don't go to school. Some children are actually happy at home because they were bullied on the playground. So they're like, thank God, let this coronavirus not go away. Let me just be here for the rest of my life because all those bullies in the class. So we can't just assume that they all want to come back to school. No, they don't want to come back to school. Some teachers don't even want to come back to school. They're like, that's a head teacher. The administrator always bullying me. As long as they can pay me online, I'm okay. We must be mindful. We must be checking everybody out, knowing how they are mentally and emotionally. It's very, very important so that people can cope with anxiety at this time. We must be mindful and we must be tracking what the government are doing. We are getting all sorts of communication. First of all, it was delayed communication. We didn't hear when after the schools were closed, and then when we heard something, it was radio, transistor radios, it was what was the other one? Television, and then we started hearing that some people had phones. In fact, somebody sent me a video of a phone they received from the government. I've seen some people post videos of, but some people are saying, which phone? Which this? We don't know what is going on. Can there be just one place where everybody can just go every morning, even if it's Instagram or Twitter or Facebook? Every morning you go there, just like you do for CDC. Every morning you see how many new cases, how many deaths, how many things. Can we go somewhere? And every time we log to that place, anybody around the world will just know that they have given 100 phones to all the children in Ikoyi, all the children in Abulegba. They all have phones. Can we have one central place? Will we keep getting all sort of fake posts? Somebody will send something to me, I'll be like, hey, is it even true? Can I even share this? This one, wow. You don't even know what is credible and what is not credible. So mindfulness also has to happen amongst our leadership because a lot of people were very scared. When they said third term or no third term, a lot of people, schools followed me online and they were looking for lead instruction that we can't hear from the government. What the local part is going to do? She and I have big mouths. What is she going to do? And I tell people, continue with your third term content, continue your content, third term content. And they said, okay, they will continue. They said we should not do third term. In fact, in the north, they were saying that if you do third term, you will be arrested. And that's okay. Then tell them. So I wrote to my parents, we're not calling it third term. They said we should not call it third term. Let's not break the law. We're not calling it third term. We're just going to be teaching curricula that is relevant to the age of the children. Whether it's content or not, that one is not for me to say. they just said we should not call it third term, so we call it virtual term. Even the report cards, we wrote virtual term. When we did our graduation, we wrote virtual term. Vanguard picked it up, Punch picked it up. Everybody, channel was blowing up when they saw our graduation because we did it online as well. But we did not do third term. So even when we resume, we tell us to do third term, we start it. We tell us to do first term, we start it. What is it? It's artificial constructs, they call it. Just give the children the content. My own pride lies in the fact that my children had a graduation. My pride remains in the fact that they are on par with children around the world, which is important. So everybody needs this mindfulness. It's very, very important. The future of virtual learning, teachers should model this mindfulness. They should substitute one activity with another. So if one thing is not working, please find another thing for your child. Use your voices, use your voice, body language, use exercise, implement mindfulness all the time. Have fun. We cannot give up we do not have. How can a child be having fun with children when the person has worry and anxiety on their mind? What am I going to do? Even your own children. At some point, even one of my teachers, she said to me that her own children's school were not doing it online and they were struggling and everything. And I know that if her own children are not going to school, how is she going to be? And then she lives quite far, but she wants to work at the point. And she can't be bringing her children from where she lives because it's too far. And all this, and she's online anyway because we are already closed. Put your children online. If it's now online, let them join us. She can, there's no problem. Mindfulness, because I know that if she's not settled and children are not settled, she's not never going to give the posh kids that she's teaching. She's not going to give them the best. So have fun and don't try to be perfect. Be okay to make mistakes. Let people make mistakes. We got correct by failing forward. So I'll conclude by saying, everybody, if you are going to indulge me and you don't mind respectfully, let us be mindful. Let me see if I can stop my screen. And conclude. Stop share. Okay, so let me get to gallery view. Good. So let us be mindful. If you are able to put on your screen, it's okay. We don't mind what you look like. It's okay. We're one family. Let us be mindful and let's take deep breaths. Let's go. Because it's a mindful exercise. Breathing is very strong. It's very powerful when we are being mindful. So we're going to take 3 deep breaths, first of all, on my count. So let's go. 1, and then hold it until I say 2. 1. Out. In. Out. In again. Out. How did that make you feel? So we're done for the day. Thank you for being mindful and thank you for the audience. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. God bless you. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to take the questions.
Thank you so much for this elaborate and it's breathtaking. She never had a full stop nor comma. I noticed that she talked. There was no break. She was talking. I told you she's very energetic. And thank you for this little exercise you took us through. Also, we've been sitting for about 2 to almost 3 hours now, and I know that it's not too good for us. So the breathing in and out and all that, even the raising up of the hands and all that. Thank you so much for this mindful teaching. Everybody must practice mindfulness, both parents, teachers, school owners, even our government leaders. We should be mindful of everybody around us, mindful of the students, mindful of the parents, especially students that may be coming from homes that have lost 1 or 2 people or had bad experiences. Some children now, I understand, are facing sexual harassment even from their fathers. I have heard such, and then they come back to school, and then some teachers don't just take it out on them. No, we have to be mindful on such people and know how to empathize with them and work with them through the period you have to work. She has spoken so much, and I know that for those who want the slides, we're going to send them to you so you can also go through it, because we've been sitting for a long time, and I'm expecting if anybody has some questions or the contribution to make, the person is free to do so. You can just raise your hand up or type it on the chat box. We'll bring it up. Does anybody have any contribution to make to this, to her presentation?
We have a question. It says,
Okay.
how can mindfulness be introduced into the curriculum? So,
okay, do we also have to introduce mindfulness as we have to introduce the virtual learning into the curriculum too? And how can we do that? Okay,
so,
I can say
like,
that.
for example, what I've said is, for us, it's not that we introduced it. Let's call it part of the hidden curriculum. It's a culture of the organization. It's part of what we do at Le Poche. It's our everyday thing. So when the children come at circle time, for example, the preschoolers, before we even start a class, there's something we do. Because I'm a neuro-linguistics practitioner, which is NLP, and we must break states. So when I wanted to start my my talk now, I didn't just start talking. I could easily just start talking, but I had to break state, knowing that people have been there since. So it's not part of what I wanted to present. It's not on my slide, but I did it. So when we're being mindful, if you tell a child that, okay, calm down, take a deep breath, don't be angry, take it easy, easy. It's not part of the curriculum per se. It's just part of the orientation. So when our teachers come, we tell them this is how we manage our children. When we say that the child is behaving in such a way. So it's part, let's call it something that can be part of your handbook so that people can be aware of a culture. So when they go out on the playground and they come back, what stage are they in? Are they in a stage ready enough for them to play, to learn as well? So let's not call it that it's a curriculum. So on Mondays we do mindfulness, which is good. You can actually do meditation and stuff. But the thing is, when you start doing meditation and all, because of the cultural biases, people say, you want to make their children witches, you want to put them inside cults. And I've heard that one happen. So I'm very, very careful about that. But say, for example, another thing we do is, if they're doing maths at Le Poche, we normally put very low background music, calm music. It could just be a repetition of waterfalls. And it goes so calm. But the effect that it has on them, they themselves are not even wary of the fact that they're doing it. Or if they're doing arts, for example, we can be playing hip hop. Because our children love music. It's just being mindful of all those things. So I won't call it that it's curriculum. It's more of culture. It's more of culture.
Okay, thank you so much. More of culture, not actually to be incorporated in the curriculum. It is a way of arousing your children to listening to you, and I think that is just it's more of culture. You should be able to know how to attract your children and maintain and manage your class. That is just it. You should be able to be creative, find a way of create interest for these children to learn, especially now they are learning from home. And she touched about different levels of students. You know, there are students who can who learn by just drawing. There was this student she talked about. You know, he draws and all that. It doesn't mean he doesn't pass the exams. He does, but you know, now tell me what happens when he's at home. You are not monitoring that he's actually drawing you. The teacher there are actually students that will be drawing the teacher, and at the end of the class, they boldly go to the teacher and give the teacher the drawing, but they still listen to what is being taught. Yes. Now, be mindful of such children. Don't hush them down. You know, don't just hush them down. I learned that a long time ago. You know, don't hush children down. Just be mindful of them. Know what it is that motivate them to listening and learning. You know what it is that motivate them to listening and learning. And that's the best way you can manage your classroom and control the class. Also be mindful of the fact that a lot of students have gone, even parents have gone through even depression this period around. A lot of things have happened, and then children, even parents together, we all gone through one depression cycle or the other. Be mindful of such students and know how to treat them. But most importantly, what she said that actually interests me is that for the teachers to be also mindful of these people, the school owners should be able to also be mindful of the teachers. Give them the proper learning training, give them the proper communicate with them properly. Also know their own mental state, and handle that so that they can deliver to the children. Because if they are not also stable mentally, they cannot deliver to the children. So we must be very mindful in everything we do. We're mindful on how we also air frustration on these children and all that, even parents. Mindful in everything we do in terms of learning and teaching. Thank you so much, Mrs. Ronke Posh. And I just want to, if there are no questions.
There's someone raising up his hand. I think one Olajide raised up his hand.
Okay, Alaji.
One Olajide also.
Okay, Olajide.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Right. Thanks to everybody that has spoken since we started the webinar. My question actually goes to Mrs. Ronke Posh. I hope she's still there.
Yeah, she is.
Aspect of curriculum development, even though we had been had a talk about that. The very first speaker had actually mentioned certain things to us. What I didn't ask a question then, so I want to ask now.
Okay.
What I would like to find out is this: when you're developing curriculum, you are actually also using other people's materials. I have seen that we actually do not acknowledge the sources of our materials. We just put it together and we put them up and we say, this is what we have developed. Are we not breaking copyright rules by doing this? Because most of the time, the kind of work we have now online, we hardly ever put references at the back for the learners to know that we have sourced a particular maybe website or printed documents in any form. We only get across things like that when somebody has maybe developed a full app and referring to his or her sources from schools, from books, from wherever. I would like her to please tell me her view about that.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So for someone that is a content creator I've been creating content for over 10 years, I constantly produce content, and my material is often plagiarized. In WhatsApp groups, people will tell me they pick something from my group and they use it in WhatsApp. I used to lament about it a lot online. I used to lament about it. Someone said, go and trademark, go and do this. Unfortunately, we live in an environment where intellectual property is not respected. It is what it is. There's not much we can do about it. If you have the money and the willpower to go and chase people that are plagiarizing, then you can do so. However, you can copyright all your materials. You see people doing that. But even on WhatsApp group, you will see that when somebody gives good content, somebody will forward it and remove the author's name.
Yeah.
And we will keep on forwarding it, and we keep on forwarding it, and we keep on forwarding it, and keep on forwarding it. Now, like I said, when we were with the children on this virtual thing, we were not using YouTube material or online material. We were creating content from the beginning. Every single day, we were creating content in terms of, even if it's nursery rhyme, we will stay there, we will sing, we will show the material. It was our own material. Because for me, I did not believe that my children should be going to be watching somebody else and then getting paid for it. Their parents can go to YouTube themselves. But there's no price that can replace the price of a teacher at this COVID time when they see their teacher and say, this is wrong. So that was my content. You can't carry my picture and say it's yours. No, you can't. But it is the environment that we live. We don't respect intellectual property. Try it somewhere else in the UK or something like that. You're already in trouble. There are red flags. There are even apps and software that people use to know. Say, for example, you're writing a dissertation or a project and you submit it to a lecturer. They will catch you. Instantly, they'll catch you. But all those type of practices are not common in Nigeria. People will just remove. I've had people remove my name and they're even my Facebook friends and repost my content. So they do it. Even ordinarily this YouTube alone, if you try it on YouTube and they see that you're bringing somebody, it's a copyright violation, they will plug you, pull it down immediately. It is the society that we live in. We do not value content. We do not value intellectual property. It's unfortunate. However, if you find that somebody has stolen your content, the best you can do is to approach the person. I mean, I've approached somebody before about my content before, and he said, there's nothing new under the sun. Even you got it from somewhere else. Oh. That is the mentality that we have in Nigeria. It's sad, but that is what it is.
Okay. Thank you so much. Actually, that's what it is. Nobody. I mean, you ask the person, like she said, and so what? You also got this from somewhere because they never believe that you can develop something on yourself by yourself. That is why such people make such comments.
Somebody asked if you can track websites visited by the children on another phone. Yes, I use an app called QU Studio. I'll pop it in the chat box. QU Studio, Google Family Link. It's screen time. Those are some of the apps. There are many others that you can use to track. I get a daily report about my daughter, even though we sit on the same table when she's on online school. But anywhere she visits, if it's not something that is for her age, it will block her, and it will also tell me that she has visited the site that or she's trying to, and I will check it. And sometimes, to be honest, it's not even anything bad. It's just that the thing is too sensitive. So there are tracks, there are apps like that. QU Studio, there's a basic plan and there's a pro plan. A pro plan, you will use it anywhere that they go on the internet. You even tell you, they went to YouTube, they spent 30 minutes. It will tell you exactly the time. It will tell you every single thing. So there are apps like that. I'll put some there.
Okay, somebody is raising her hand. Yinka Makonjola, please.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon. You're welcome, Yinka, please.
Okay, my name is Yinka Makonjola. I'm not a teacher, but I'm very passionate about education, and I love teachers. I want to say a very big thank you to all the speakers tonight for all the presentations and what they this afternoon, and what they have spoken about. I actually needed to go out by 12 p.m. Look at the time now, I'm still here, just because this is quite interesting, captivating, and I've learned a lot from it. I actually came in settled when Mr. Odugowa of Lagos State was talking. That was when I actually came in really settled. I didn't hear what Mrs. Obaji and I think maybe Dr. Balogun said, but I heard Mr. Odugowa speak. I heard Mr. Odushola. I heard Ronke Posh. Yeah, I heard her speak, and I heard the comments of Mr. Obaji and Dr. Balogun. Well done. Thank you very, very much. Now I want to say, I took some notes as well. I want to say, now at the beginning of the year, everybody has a budget or you have a New Year resolution. Nobody ever budgeted COVID. Even if you had a budget, it was under the broad subject health or maybe safety or environment. Nobody had that COVID. So this is a time when this came up, is a time for everybody to start budget realignment, budget revision, or what have you. Where is Nigeria in the scheme of things now in this COVID? Where is Lagos State? I want to commend the efforts of Lagos State because I took notes, Mr. Odugowa, practically all you said. I have about 10 points. And those 10 points were actually the issues that have been bothering my mind, a lot of them. You were able to tackle them very, very well. Thank you very much, sir. Also to Mr. Stevenson, you talked about the rural areas. You also mentioned, a lot of things that you said that have been bothering my mind and which was also captured. Thank you very much. Now, Ronke Posh, thank you so much. I mean, you actually went, how would I say? When you said thinking out of the box, I was able to capture a lot of things. Thank you. Well done. Mrs. Ogbaji too, your comments, well done. Now, what are we talking about? There was no budget. I mean, COVID was not in anybody's budget. God forbid. And we're talking about the new normal. Is it actually the new normal we're talking about or new abnormal? COVID is there. There's climate change. There's economic distress. There's political distress. There's international strife. Are all of these things normal? I begin to wonder. Now, let me just streamline it. Let me come down to the field of education. A lot has been said. I don't want to go over what has been said again. Mr. Odugowa, you mentioned something like dropout. You mentioned something like social isolation, and Mr. Stevenson also talked about inequalities. Now, in the normal setting before COVID, when there was in-school, in-person education, we had dropouts for one reason or the other. Now that this is a system-driven, the system, is driven, is not controlled by anyone, it's a system-driven thing. We cannot rule that fact out, that we're going to have so many dropouts again, based on some factors that are beyond our, what would I call it now, beyond our comprehension or beyond our capabilities or whatever. We're going to have so much more. Mr. Odugowa, is there any plan in place for such dropouts so that they don't go onto the streets and start misbehaving? That I want to ask. Then we're talking about this. Runke Kosh talked about culture. I like the angle from which she came from. I had something in mind on culture before that I wanted to ask our educationists. And my question is, then in this, we're talking about technology and whatever. Where is the place of Nigerian culture, our tradition? Already people were saying that our culture is going into extinction. So how are we going to bring that into this online teaching and what's all these things we're talking about, online teaching? Then again, the cognitive architecture of the brain is such that humans can only absorb new material for only minutes. So in this new era, this new normal that we are in, how do we factor that in, particularly the teachers, How do we factor that in when we are interacting with the students online? Initially, I was also particular about all those things that need practicals, like the science students, they need to do your practicals. How do you do that online? But I think Mr. Jungwa already touched on that. Then when we look at it globally, where is the place of Nigeria? Where is Lagos State? Are we trying? Are we up to speed? In my own opinion, I would say yes, we are up to speed. And why do I say this? Everybody is confused. Everybody, all the nations are doing trial and error. And that is why they have told everyone, go on herd immunity. Herd immunity. In as much as the government will do its best, we are also responsible as individuals. Then on the issue of resumption, I really can't tell, I can't say whether schools should resume or schools should not resume. But people have expressed their opinions left, right, and center. But what I would say is that this resumption is everybody's responsibility. It is my responsibility. It is your responsibility as a parent. We should not leave everything in the hands of the government. I hear people say, oh, government, put this in place. If I still had a child in primary school or secondary school, believe you me, before the child goes out, before I take him to school, I'll put a bucket of water outside with soap and sanitizer. As soon as you're coming from school, I'm doing the same thing. Go and remove your clothes. I'll have to play. You play your part, I play my part. We don't have to leave everything in the hands of the government. It is our collective responsibility. If not for that, everybody is still trying. Like I said, it's trial and error. They said, go on herd immunity, go and build your immunity, go and do this, go and do that. But well, I think for now that's what I have to say. Oga has been waiting for me, but for the past 3 hours, I've been begging him, please wait. I can't afford to miss this one. Thank you very much. On the issue of telephone, yes, I went to grind pepper last week in Ifako Bagada. I went to grind pepper, and the woman that did that for me said, mommy, see, they gave my daughter a phone in school yesterday, brand new phone, and this phone can do everything that though it's not Android. He said this phone can do everything that Android does. So I'm now like, Onda, let me see. She now showed it to me. This is it. She kept it on one table. I just said, phone on table. Just take it, keep it very well. This person, I don't know who did it, but I mean, I'm just trying to buttress some of the points that have been mentioned. And that's the child is in Ifako. This government school in Ifako.
Government school. Okay.
Yes, that's where the child is. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mrs. Makonjola. That is what Lagos State is doing, providing, like what Mr. Odugua said. So some schools have started receiving these phones for their learning. She was asking, where is the Nigerian culture?
Dr. Ore.
Yes,
Ore, sorry.
Yes, please.
Lastly, I have this to say on the issue, and this is to everybody, not only teachers. We should not even leave everything in the hands of teachers or government. On the issue of health, we are beginning to go online. Our children are using computers, they are using phones. All these things have health implications, and they need to have their timing. So I don't know what the schools are doing about it. I don't have a child in primary school or secondary school, like I said earlier, but I still have a child in school. So what is the timing like that they don't have to sit down, break their, yeah, exactly, and their eyes too, these things have health implications. So also to Lagos State too. Lagos State, please, is there a monitoring team in place when schools resume, those that will go around to check that Lagos State and NCDC rules are being, that to show that these schools are compliant with the rules and instructions and directives of all of this? Thank you very much. Please,
thank you, sir. Yes.
Permit me to step out.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you so much. She was asking, one of the questions she asked is incorporating our culture in all this, this virtual thing. How do we incorporate our culture? When, for me, I think when you cannot even see the students and all that, I think if I can say something, like Ronke Posh said, if you come into the class, the virtual class, you do some things. I mean, you can even ask the children, if it's frustrating to greet, part of our culture, you can see them prostrate to greet and all that. You can still teach, you can still incorporate culture in all these new learning formats we have now virtually. I don't think learning virtually will actually erode our culture within the school environment. And then she talked about some other things which, well, she just talked about them and the phone thing of what Lagos State is doing. I think Mr. Adebola still wants to say something. He said he wants to still try to see if he has a pressing thing he wants to say. Can we give him just a minute's chance? Mr. Adebola, are you back? Please unmute Mr. Adebola Aderibigbe. Can you unmute? Ask Mr. Adebola. Okay, Mr. Adebola. Yeah, can you go ahead? Go ahead, please. We can't still hear him.
I think we are still having audio problem. While he's cutting himself
out, while he's not, yes.
Lagos State, Oduguwa.
Oduguwa, yeah, Mr. Oduguwa, please. While you are responding to what Mrs. Makonjola said, on what your Lagos State is doing, while you are responding to that, you just give us your parting word.
I want to say thank you very much, Mr. Toyin Makonjola, for your questions. You said, is there any body monitoring the level of compliance? Like I said before, there is this agency, Office of Education Quality Assurance Evaluators, that go around our schools in all the 6 education districts in Lagos State to monitor the level of compliance on how to see whether any school complies or not, and they will take note. Secondly, you also asked about, is there anything that the Lagos State government is doing about the dropout? I call it out of school children, yes, and you call it dropout. It's the same thing. You see, good enough. On Wednesday, there is a committee set up even to carry out a study on out of school children, and that is to tell you that Lagos State government is aware of this and is doing something tangible about the out of school children in Lagos State. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Oduguwa, can you just give us a parting word before you drop your mic?
Okay.
Parting word, final word you're giving to our educators here, teachers, parents, and students who are listening.
So my parting was that we should observe all the safety protocols that Lagos State government and even the federal government have put in place. We should make sure we keep our social distancing, to make sure that we wash our hands regularly, to make sure that we use sanitizers, especially when we go out and we are coming in, to make sure that we observe. All these are very key. All these are very key, and as we do that, we will begin to, stop the spread. We make sure that we stop the spread of this COVID-19, and it will not go round again. And another thing, I want to once again thank my Honorable Commissioner for Education, Mrs. Folashade Adebisoye, for giving me this wonderful opportunity. And lastly, I want to give kudos again to our action and able governor, who is very resilient, courageous, visionary, and proactive in handling this COVID-19 very, very maturely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Odugowa, for your time and for all that you have given to us today in terms of closing the gap, the knowledge gap that exists due to COVID-19. Thank you so much, sir. We thank also the Lagos State Ministry of Education for releasing you. Thank you so much. I just called on Dr. Julia Ogbaji to give us a parting word from so far from the discussions we've had. Thank you, ma'am.
I just want to encourage teachers that they should still keeping on. No, the challenges are there. We should continue to look for solutions, how to resolve some of the issues. That's all I have to say for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma, for your time all the way from Kaduna State. We thank you for your time and the very helpful presentation you gave to us this afternoon. God bless you. I don't know if Mrs. Tony Samuel Mehel is still around. Otherwise, I call on Ronke Posh. Ronke Posh, please. Can you just give us a parting word, a final word, and advice we should go by? Ronke Posh,
I was trying to unmute.
Okay.
I'm said now. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I just want to thank you for the opportunity. Thank everybody for the audience for listening. And what I would say at this time is that we just have to be there for each other. We have to collaborate. We have to share experiences, share skills, share tools, so that we can all make it to the other side and nobody is left behind, not the teachers, not the students, nobody. We should just collaborate, work together, not hide anything. I give freely everywhere because we just have to make it in the best interest of the Nigerian child and in the best interest of the nation as a whole. Let's continue to share. Let's continue to collaborate. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time and very lively presentation you gave to us this afternoon. Finally call my CEO, Mr. Kenneth Stevenson, to probably say one or two things while we round this up the next 2 or 3 minutes.
Well, let me thank you so much, all the speakers and also the participants. We are so delighted that you're able to spend about 3 hours plus with us this afternoon. I sort of love what the angle that Mrs. Mike Konjola brought into it, because she was actually on her way out. She had to wait because this is very important. But let me just summarize this conversation from our own point of view and what we need to do, and also from said report that's been out there in the public space. Government aid is needed in terms of investing in educational tools of the future, alongside a total revamp of the educational sector. Reforms in the national curriculum, as has been said, post-pandemic will be an effective way to bridge the gap in inequality. Priorities should include the introduction of courses such as coding and robotics, which can usher students into the era of the fourth industrial revolution and prepare them for jobs of the future. In countries such as Nigeria, education should be viewed as a high government priority, help in increasing awareness of the pressing needs for the country's children to be educated, especially those from the low-income families, will benefit the country's economy in years to come. Aid provided in this direction can be viewed as an investment in human capital. The more educated a country is, the more productive. Of all sustainable missions, surely the most pressing is to improve lives. And there's no better way to do so than proper and sound education for all. Thank you all very much for this conversation. We truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time and the knowledge we've gained from our speakers all the way from Kaduna State and Lagos State, and all our participants. Thank you. And we are going to hold another session in a very short while. This will be more of teaching and lecturing. It's going to be on effective teaching virtually and all that. And I hope participants will also register for this course. So I have a lot of emails, and we're going to send you the materials at the end of by next week. So we're going to get that. Thank you so much, and God bless you for attending. And I hope that you oblige us whenever we call on you for this time like this. Collaboration with everybody. We put our hands together to bring about education to the standard and level that we dream of for this country. Thank you, and bye-bye. Happy Salah for our Muslim brothers and sisters, and to every other person. God bless you.